taking control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
outdoor experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride as we kick off a new week. And thank you for listening in at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on Revolution Radio, and the United Public Talk Radio Network, as well as the High Plains Talk Radio Network. Good to have you with us. We welcome you to tonight's show as we broadcast live out of Uncle Jimbo's cabin right here in the Great White North this Monday night, early Tuesday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Space Out Radio, we do this thing 3 hours a night, 7 days a week, because we want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, the paranormal, the cryptozoological, the spiritual, and so much more. If you like our theme music, you can thank our resident guitar god, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Bumblefoot is the man behind all of Spaced Out Radio's music. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we say hello to everyone listening in the chat rooms of Revolution Radio, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Chronicles of the Unknown, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. If you haven't signed up for the SOR Space Travelers yet, let me tell you, it is time. Why? Because we like giving things away. It's only $5 a month, and with that, your name gets entered into monthly prize draws. You get access to private group interviews, access to a special section for your postings, and much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. Well, on our website, you can read up on my latest blog, check out Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest weird news, and if you've had a weird or strange experience, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. It's right there for you. Our researcher, Mike Schmidt, is waiting for you to fill it out. All of your personal information is 100% confidential. We want to thank our newest affiliate as of a week today, the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and their listeners from over 160 countries around the world. Thank you so much for letting us be your evening entertainment. We hope that we put out some good programming for you, and you decide to come back on a nightly basis. If you are listening in on Revolution Radio, remember it is the largest nonprofit online radio station going. Do the favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. There's a threshold on the other side where fantasy and reality seem to combine with one another. On one hand, you have angels, beloved and benevolent beings who are there for each and every person and living being out there. On the other hand, you have aliens, extraterrestrial life that seems to play both sides of the ledger, from the good to the absolutely uncaring. But is there a tie between the two? That's what we need to find out. For many, there seems to be a tie between the two groups, even though they seem to be so separated by both religion and personal belief. So what's the deal? People like you and me are having these experiences. The answers seem harder to come by. Margo Mateas is an intuitive strategist and spiritual advisor, someone who helps people find their path and literally stay on it. She's done work for Fortune 500 companies. She's worked with sectors of the U.S. government. She is in the know. Her career cards oracle deck has been used in 14 countries as she helps ease the understanding of knowledge that's out there, the knowledge most of us struggle to translate. Her website, talkwithangels.com. We bring Margo into Space Out Radio Land for the first time. Margo, thank you so much for being with us. How are you?
I'm great, Dave. Thank you so much for having me.
I am very excited to have you along for the ride because I have heard nothing but good things about you and amazing things about you from a mutual friend that we have in Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange, which you can find on spacedoutradio.com. And he said...
to Dave.
Exactly. And you know what? He actually said that I'm going to be so thrilled with tonight that he got me really excited for this show. Really excited. So thank you so much for saying hello and how are you? And yes, that you would be here with us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, woot woot to Dave Cruz, Beyond the Strange. He's awesome. And I think he's listening tonight too, which is great.
He is. He just entered the chat room, so I'm sure he'll be blushing as we talk about him. That's just the way it goes. I would love to learn a little bit about you because we have a new expanded audience with the United Public Radio Network joining us as of last week, and they bring in some huge type numbers for us. So I would love it if you took a few minutes, Margo, to tell us a little bit about you. How did you get started with your intuitiveness? Has it always been a gift, or did you have to find it?
Well, I think like most people, you have to find it or you have to accept it. We're all psychic because God built this into us as a connection point, right? There's a reason why every human being on the planet says, oh my God, in whatever language they have when they're under duress or stress or fear. It's because God is within us. And so it's not anything unusual to be psychic. What is unusual is the ability to really give into it and allow yourself to focus on it and believe it and trust it and follow it. And so that for me has been a process. So I had my first premonition at about 8 years old. I had a dream, and then whatever I dreamt about came true on the playground that day or at school. And then I started having visions as a teenager. And then when I was older, I saw visions of Christ, and now it's really expanded into full-blown psychicness. I never thought I would be a psychic. I've always been a corporate person. When I was 14, I won a speech contest and came home and bought a briefcase. I mean, the Revenge of the Nerds movie was my greatest victory, right? There's a place in this world for me. But yeah, so I was always a very geeky kid, but a very grounded kid, and one who really wanted to be in the business world. And so for me, it's kind of been walking that line. But to answer your question, yeah, I didn't grow up thinking I was psychic, like some people, see angels and all that stuff when they're really little. I didn't have that experience. Childhood for me was very terrifying and scary, and so I was really just trying to get through that. And then once I got through that and onto more stable ground in my adulthood, things started to develop. But I always used my intuition in business, always. So we can talk about that a little bit more later.
I would love to talk about that. And you know what's funny is I'm someone like you where I didn't develop mine or start to develop mine until just a couple of years ago when I started having my own personal experiences. I never paid any attention to absolutely anything revolving anything spiritual and supernatural. But now that I look at things, I realize that my daughter, who's now 17, she'll be 18 in January. She had to remind me of that today, which really bothered me. She has been seeing spirits literally since she was about 1.5 years, 2 years old. My stepdaughter, who is 13, she has fairies that come around her ever since we moved up north here in British Columbia. Never happened until we came. Yeah, and she literally has fairies in her room almost every night before she goes to bed. And I asked her one night, what does it look like? And she says it's just like sparkly colors, and they fly around and they do their thing. I said, well, do they get close to you? She goes, yeah, sometimes within a couple inches of my face. But here's the interesting one. Together, because we're a blended family, my little guy, who's 3, I didn't know this until yesterday, but he is starting to see things. And recently, he and my wife went up to a friend's house a couple hours away for the night, and apparently he was describing the man who stays upstairs in their home. And more recently, he was walking, running through the kitchen as he normally does, playing with his toys, and all of a sudden he just stopped and looked at the doorway. And my wife looked at the doorway, and there was about a 5 to 6 foot being there with a purple haze with blackish blue eyes and an alien figure.
Wow.
We got things going on here. Big time things going on here. So it's very, very, how can you say, very, very interesting that it all ties in. Like, we're all connected one way or another. I'm a little upset that I didn't learn this 20 years ago. But obviously, the way I look at it is I probably wasn't ready. For a lot of people who haven't had experiences, Margo, and are yearning for that experience or yearning for that psychic intuition, and let's say they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they haven't had it, do you think it's coming, or do you think everybody has that ability?
I believe everybody has that ability. I don't think that there's a human being on this planet that doesn't have that ability, because it's hardwired into us. You know, we are all part of the divine, and these gifts are part of us. And I think that that's the 98% of our DNA that's quote-unquote junk, right, that we don't use, all this telepathy and all these amazing mental powers and superpowers. But for me, in my practice, when people come to me, they always say, I used to be connected, or I wish I could be connected, and I don't know what's blocking me. I don't know what's blocking me. So there's 2 things that people need to be aware of when you're trying to tune in, right, psychically. One is that you may already be feeling and receiving images, and you're not paying attention to it. So many times we'll get a flash, we'll get a gut feeling, we may hear something, we may have just a flash of something come through us, or something that we can't really discern or put words to, but it's there, and we just brush it aside, right? But if that same voice speaks up really loud when we're about to go through an intersection and says, don't go through the intersection now, or stop, when it's really, really loud, we pay attention to it. But it's talking to us 1,000 times a day in 1,000 different ways, right? It could be knowing when the phone is going to ring. It could be seeing a feather on the sidewalk. It could be seeing a penny. It could be a song you hear on the radio. My angels talk to me all the time through songs. And we just don't realize that these are messages from the spirit world. So I'm hoping that that's one thing that my book, Freed by the Light, when it comes out, is really going to help people with, is understand like how the supernatural works and how it's already speaking to us in so many ways that we're just not paying attention to. And then the other part of that is like, is it blocked? So if you are paying attention and you're super open and you're listening and you're waiting and you're praying and you're meditating and you're not getting anything, then chances are you've got a block somewhere. And that block is either because of emotions, somewhere in your childhood or somewhere in a past life or in this life, something has hurt you to the point where you decided to shut everything down. It wasn't safe to see. You didn't want to see what was in front of you. You didn't want to deal. So we perceive through the third eye, which is the clairvoyance. We perceive through the heart, which is sort of God's way of connecting with us. And then we also perceive through the gut. So these are all 3 different energy centers. And if any one of those is blocked, then the degree of guidance that you're going to get is going to be diminished, or it's going to be corrupt in some way or blocked.
So how do you open people up? How do you get those people so focused that they have the ability to push those blocks out and focus on their own spirituality or what is within them?
Well, this is where it gets kind of interesting. The answer to that is that I remove whatever supernatural interference is there, which can take the form of spiritual parasites, supernatural entities, energies that are there, or the person's, like I said, the person's own energy and emotion that's blocking it. So oftentimes, I just had a situation with a guy in Houston who had a car accident and it hurt his eye. And he had blood pressure building up in the back of his optic nerve. And he had to go in and get eye injections every 3 to 6 weeks for the last 3 years. It was the only thing that they would drain out this optic blood vessel to get it to stop building up pressure. And it was clogged. And it was from a car accident. And he came to see me and he said, well, I want to talk to you about my eye. And I said, well, I don't know if I can help your eye, you know. And I said, but I'll try. And it all turned out to be related to his past with his father, his unexpressed feelings towards his father. And these complexities are revealed like through the angelic intervention, through angels speaking to me and guides speaking to me, and then the person's own energy speaking to me. So something like that, you would never, ever guess that a physical injury could be caused really by an emotional problem. But when you actually get into the energy centers and you interact with the presences that are there, they'll actually tell you like what's going on with them. This is kind of like a counseling session, but with a variety of energies.
Do you think that most people have those blocks, or most people are just way too nervous to even try and open those up because of their fear of what is actually going to come through in their mind, their third eye, their soul, whatever it is?
Yes, absolutely. I do.
How do you then, Margo, get people to face that fear and take the plunge, so to speak, so that way they can learn from themselves rather than relying on paying tens or hundreds of dollars on psychics and hundreds of dollars on other types of mediums, whether it's tarot decks or dowsing rods or whatever it could be? How do you get them to feel for themselves?
Well, you just said it, Dave. The point is feeling for yourself. That is really the core of what's at the heart of healing, is bringing that person's awareness to their own pain. So many times the only way we can cope is by walling something off, right, or denying it. And when people say, I don't remember my childhood, or I had this traumatic thing, but I don't remember it, in my line of work, we would say that the person left their body, that their spirit left their body. It was so traumatic, they just split. You know, I'm out of here. I can't take this. And so the spirit's gone, and then we have to bring the spirit back. So in order for a person to recover these types of abilities, if they shut them down, they have to know that they're safe. And one of the amazing things that the angels do is they can actually like take away this fear. They can take away the pain. So many people call me and their voices are so heavy with pain. And they're usually older and they've tried everything and they don't know what to do to be free of their pain. And when I actually tell them, well, the angels will take it for you, they say, they can do that? I mean, how many of us are in therapy for 1 million years because we can't get rid of the pain, right? We try and we try, but it doesn't go anywhere. Or it goes deeper inside, or it just hides here. In angelic work, the angels literally will remove the pain from the energetic system. And that's the miracle of it all. So there's hope. I want people to know that there's hope, that you don't have to struggle with this by yourself. And, you know, we have this amazing supermoon tonight. It's so cool, right? In 2012, things really got better for us as humanity. Things really shifted on the planet in a really powerful way. And there's more help for us available much more easily than there ever was before. And so I really want people to know that it is much, much safer now to open, to get healed, to trust, than it ever was before, because there's more light on the planet now, and there's more people like me doing what I do, and there's more awareness around who we really are as spiritual beings and how these things affect us. So they don't need to be as scared as they used to be.
Do you find that people are opening up more? And as people, especially here in North America, seem to be stepping away from mainstream religion, do you think they are, instead of maybe going agnostic or atheist, that they are trying to find their own Zen within themselves and their own spirituality?
Well, yeah, I think people have been doing that for a long time. I was just checking a results of a Gallup poll in 2011 that said that 90% of Americans, anyway, believe in God or a universal spirit, and over 54% believe in the paranormal and UFOs and things like that. So again, we're kind of hardwired for the desire for this connection, and religion has lost us because of dogma. And I just noticed this: dogma is "am God" backwards. I just realized that today. The word dogma is "am God" backwards. And I think that religion has got a lot of this stuff backwards, and that they're trying to control people and separate people from God. Spirituality, on the other hand, is trying to connect people with God. And I think, churches are trying to talk about something that happened a long time ago, and spirituality is trying to connect you to the present. It's trying to say, God is still alive, and you can connect to God, however you call that, however it comes through for you, however it works for you. It's out there, it's alive, and it's available for you. And so, I think people they're hungry for it. Inside of us, we're intrinsically alone without some sense of connection to the divine, I think, or to our cosmic homes. Many of us here are from other planets, and people describe incredible longing for those places, to be reunited with their home and their places and their people, and they're not from here. And that's just as real a longing as there is for God.
I have a question for you from Eric in the Space Out Radio chat room, and he is asking, Margo, how does a person like him, who does believe in psi abilities and is willing to experience them, open up and sharpen their personal abilities?
Well, it's interesting because I'm sort of psychically tuning into Eric a little bit, and I think that Eric has a tendency to live a little bit in his head and be intellectual. And this is a problem for psychic ability, because psychic ability does not come through the brain. Every single client that I have has an amazing brain, incredibly rational, very highly intelligent people, very highly educated, very successful. They all have these super brains. And I mean, that doesn't matter whether they work at Walmart or they're a CEO, but they all have amazing brains that have tried so hard to solve the problem of connecting. And every time I ask the brain directly, if you could have solved this, would you have done it by now? And the brain says, yes, of course I would have. And so then I have to talk to the brain, and I say, the reason you can't solve it is because it's not within your purview. This is not an intellectual matter. It is a spiritual matter. And spirit comes into us through the senses. Spirit, that's why they call them paranormal senses, the sixth sense. It's through senses, right? And it's not an intellectual process. So if you're trying to think your way into psychic ability, it's not going to work. It also won't work if you shut down your feelings, because that creates that wall and that barrier. So ironically, the way to be a psychic superhero is to be a very empathic and empathetic person. You must become attuned to things around you. You must become sensitive.
It's funny you say that, because Eric is my resident scientist around Spaced Out Radio Land. So he sends me this note as you're speaking. He goes, "Holy shit, that's spooky." So I'm having a good laugh here, having a very good laugh at Eric's expense. So, you know what? Thank you for mentioning that. But you know what? There's a lot of people out there, as you mentioned, they are so focused on what they've learned in university or what they've learned with their religious background and everything, that the closed mind really does keep those doors closed, doesn't it?
It does. And then you also have the added problem of the ego. See, the brain believes it's God because it runs the whole system. It really thinks it's God. It doesn't know that there's support out there. It doesn't know that there's other energy that can help it. It's really desperate. It's like, I've got to figure this whole thing out by myself. And it really is freaked out. And then when you go in there, and I have to negotiate with brains. This is actually something I do. And I have to talk to the brain, and I say, I know how you're feeling, and I know that this is scary, I ask you just hang out with me. Let's just watch together, see what happens. And then invariably the brain will come back and go, wow, that was really amazing. I'm so glad you did that. I feel so much better. Now I see that there's support. There's something bigger than me out there that can actually help me if I open up to it. But yeah, most of our intellectual brains are inherently afraid of the supernatural because it means to them that I'm not God. So there's kind of an ego death involved in developing psychic ability.
Where do guardian angels come into play on this?
Well, like you said, I mean, everybody has a guardian angel. I started working with the angels about 5 years ago, kind of by accident. I was doing a career card reading with a woman in Australia, and she'd been through a divorce and about a year before, and she was still angry and depressed and stuck and really in so much turmoil. And I started realizing she didn't need a career card reading. What she needed was something else. And the angel said, this is what she needs. And they just led me into it, and I just did whatever they said. And they took her pain away, and she started to go forward in her life. And I've just watched them over and over again come in so many times with people who need compassion. And the angels sometimes are the first people, the angels speaking through me, are often the first time some of these people ever hear someone say, I'm so sorry that happened. I cry, and the angels cry. They weep with compassion for our suffering. And they're so sorry that things are as tough as they are in this dimension, and they wish that they could help. And I think a little later on we'll talk about in the ways that they've been prohibited from helping. But they are there, and they are assigned to us. They love us unconditionally. They do accept us with all of our faults. And they long to be connected to us as much as we long to be connected to them, even more so. Because imagine watching somebody that you love suffer, and you can help them. In this dimension, they can't stop rapes. They can't stop murders. They can't stop the violence to the degree that they want to because of the other forces that are at work in people. But they can provide compassion, and they can provide guidance, and they can provide cautionary guidance. They can say, don't go down that road, or don't go home with that person, you know. And if we listen to those things, they're always alive within us. But these angels are so deeply compassionate. They're only, you know, unlike some of these other entities that we're going to talk about in the cosmos, angels only have one agenda, and that is simply to help humanity. They just want to help us.
What about people who seem so adamant that they need to get to know who their guardian angel is, or angels?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, especially given my work, it's very important to be discerning about to whom you're speaking when you're talking to an invisible entity. I think it's great to, you know, ask them for ID. You know, can I call the station and check with God? You know, whatever it is, who's ever showing up in your field and asking to be your friend. It's really important to discern into that and ask them, who are you? And, you know, can you show me what you look like, and what is your name, and, you know, why are you here, and what do you want to do for me? And I think it's really, really important to do that, especially in dealing with matters of the supernatural, because there are many posers and there are many things pretending to be light that actually aren't. So it's a good idea.
So would you, if somebody wanted to get in touch with their guardian angels, recommend, if they worked and train with them, using something like a pendulum or dowsing rods or some sort of communication board?
I don't recommend communication boards, such as the Ouija board, because it's basically an open doorway. When you pick up a pendulum, you know, it's just a different kind of thing. It's not going to come through to the same degree. This is just, a Ouija board is like a bigger door. And it's kind of like when you open that door, you're opening up in the middle of a prison island, and all the prisoners that want to get out are pushing at the door to get through. So you have to think the high ascended angels and people that you really want to talk to are not outside, hanging outside your door waiting to get in. They're in a different place. They have a different job. They're not that that same energy, right? So the energies that are going to come through the Ouija board are discarnate spirits that want to get back in the world, that want to finish their addictions, that have an evil agenda, that, you know, they're attached through some type of addiction or unfinished business. So the entities that I would want people to connect with are not going to come through a Ouija board. The entities that I want people to connect with are very high vibration angels and other light beings, and those are going to come through meditation, through prayer, through very specific invocations of those types of energies.
The reason why I
and
ask...
you need to be really careful.
The reason why I ask is I use a pendulum. And I have a pair of pendulums. One has been very, very well protected and grounded with the white light and everything. Thank you, Amber Avalona, who sent that to me. And my guide, my main guide, his name is Jordan. And him and all I have to do is the minute I get it in my hand, I give a quick prayer. I say, "Hey, Jordan, are you there?" And bang, he is on. And he is going. And I test it out every now and again. And I tested it out about an hour and a half before the show tonight with a young lady who was the niece of a good friend of mine who passed away about 6 weeks ago. And I was 100% with her.
That's awesome.
And it blew me away because there is always that chance that you're not going to be 100%. In fact, we know that most of the time it's not going to happen that way. But sometimes it does. So how do you know when you have a pure connection with your guide?
Well, that's a great question. And let me just go back and kind of finish a little bit about the pendulums and dowsing rods and things like that. All those are good tools. I just don't encourage Ouija boards because they're just too dangerous. But yeah, pendulums are great, dowsing rods, anything like that. Oracle cards are awesome too. And I recently went on retreat after writing so much, and I took like 5 different decks with me. And I, in addition to my own career cards, I took a couple angel decks and things like that, and one of Stephen Farmer's, and they all said the same thing in their own way. They all said the same thing. They all said connect with nature, and I was in nature. They all said rest, and I was resting. They all said, writing. It was just amazing. They all said the same thing in the same way. So that's another way. And when I was younger, I used to work with the runes a lot and tarot decks and things like that. And then, of course, I created my own oracle decks. So I really believe in oracle decks. I've made major life decisions based on oracle decks and runes. So they are powerful. How do you test them? First of all, they're not going to give you bad advice. So anything that gives you blatantly bad advice, that it has a negative vibration, that is really super inconsistent. So sometimes that can happen too. Like if you're really stressed out or afraid about something, that's not the best time to be consulting an oracle. Now, I can't personally work with pendulums myself because I discovered that my whole body is a channel. And we've talked about me being scientifically verified as a healer and all the interesting things that means. But my whole body is a channel. So I can literally pick up a pendulum and it will do whatever I say. I can just look at it and think, go around in a circle and it'll go in a circle. I'll tell it to stop, it'll stop. So they're absolutely no use for me. And I've tried, Archangel Michael, please take control of this pendulum, and it just doesn't work. So somebody explained to me, why that was, because my body is a channel. But for quote-unquote other regular people, they're really good. And I know many people that use pendulums very reliably. So the things you want to check for consistency, you want to check for accuracy. If there's no accuracy, if there's inconsistency, it's not a stable channel, and I wouldn't trust it. I would go to a different guide, pray to a different guide, invoke a different guide, and just see how that goes. So the counsel should be consistent, stable, and accurate.
Eric is asking, what are your feelings about tarot cards then? Good, bad, indifferent? I like the tarot. I used it for many, many years. It's gotten a bad rap, the way the whole occult thing has gotten a bad rap. When I created the career cards, I wanted something, and they're not just about career, they're about everything. I wanted something that didn't have any disturbing imagery in it or any dark connotations.
So that's one reason why I created them, because they're very mainstream, very mainstream. So they're used by, therapists, doctors, nurses, mothers, kids, everybody in between. The problem with the tarot is that, usually only get a small booklet to kind of figure out what it means, and then it'll just give you like 1 or 2 word little things. So it's not really a narrative. It's not really deep enough most of the time, or you have to kind of learn it, to kind of take a course in it. But I think it's a great thing. I mean, people will find the tool that works for them. So some people use angel cards, some people use oracle decks, some people use runes, some people read tea leaves. Divination's been around as long as man. So whatever works for you is fine. Just make sure that it's stable and accurate and consistent.
And a follow-up question to that from Eric. He is asking, what are your feelings, Margo, on the Thoth deck? Many feel it is tainted due to its connection to Aleister Crowley.
Mr. Crowley, right. I want to say 2 things. I have a tarot deck, which is the Russian tarot. And it was created by Yuri Shakov, who was a famous Russian miniature painter. He would paint sometimes with a single brush on his paintbrush. And it's an exquisite deck, and it's actually magical because the colors in the cards will glow or recede based on the energy in the reading. So I've had other people around me and doing a reading for them, and they'll say, oh, last week that green wasn't that bright. Or notice how that pink is really bright tonight. Or look at that yellow light up. Or they'll just kind of recede and be very, very dim. So I just wanted I remember that about my tarot experience. I don't like the Thoth deck. I stay away from that. I usually stay away from the Rider-Waite as well, even though it's not that bad. There's so many now creative. I mean, there's even a tarot for Christians. There's a deck called Tarot for Christians. There's some lovely ones. Inner Child deck. The new Lenormand deck is beautiful. There's about as many iterations of the tarot, as there are religions, I think, these days. So anybody, anywhere can find a tarot deck that works for them, I think. But you have to go with what makes you comfortable. And I don't like to have any negative stuff around me, so I don't use those.
So, and we'll get back to angels in a minute, since we're with the decks and everything along those lines. Do you smudge, or do you try and clear any type of energy that could be around before use, after use? I mean, even yourself, you say you're your own dowsing rod, so to speak, because your abilities are just at that point where you've connected yourself so strongly. So do you recommend people smudging or people cleansing absolutely everything that they use after they try and get in touch with spirit?
Definitely. You want to open the channel and close the channel. So you want to open the door and close the door. So it's just like kind of having a party. When you prepare your house for the party, you invite certain people in, people that you want to be there, people that you think will benefit and help everybody and have a good time. And then when they're done, you close and lock the door and you clean up the house. And it's the same process for working with a divination tool. You want to prepare the space. You want to have your mind clear. You want to calm down, maybe light a candle, definitely say a prayer, be in that sacred space. Really listen to the messages that come through the cards. And while we're talking about tarot and oracle decks, know that there may be something called a cosmic override, which is you may sit down and say, am I supposed to take this job? And then you pull a card, and maybe it seems like it relates to your marriage or to a problem with one of your kids or to a health issue. It doesn't mean that the tarot deck is wrong. It means that the universe is taking that precious opportunity to get your attention and to deliver you a message that you need to hear. So that's another mistake that people make sometimes with decks. They think, well, it's not answering my question the way I asked it. And sometimes there's a more important question that needs to be asked. But yes, definitely prepare the space. I do sage my decks. I run them over a candle. I'll cut the deck in 3, and then I'll just pass it over a candle each side. And I've actually burned, ironically, the Tower card in the tarot has a blister on it from heat. For those of you that don't know the tarot, it's the card of basically destruction and everything falling apart in your life. So it's a very explosive card with a lot of fire energy in it. So I definitely recommend that. Yeah, absolutely. Saging is great.
I think so too. And you know what? I know around here I carry Palo Santo wood around. So is there anything that specific that people should use? We always hear sage. Palo Santo comes up quite a bit. What do you recommend for people to cleanse maybe not their spiritual access or their home in general?
Well, I mean, I think sage is great. I think white candles are great. Salt lamps are great. Those are all things in your environment. Positive crystals. Some people get dark crystals like obsidian or hematite or onyx or something to collect negative energy for them, and that's great, but it's going to collect negative energy. So you want to take it out every couple months and bury it, or, you know, run it under water, or put it in the stream for a few days or something like that and cleanse it, and just kind of keep that flow going in your house. And salt in front of the doorways is a good thing. There's a number of kind of sort of like old witchy stuff, but they do work. They definitely do work. Yeah. Candles are good, white candles. Yeah.
How easy is it for people to get in touch with their guardian angels?
It depends on the person, Dave, just like you said. You know, it depends on how blocked they are, how hurt they are, how damaged they are, how intellectual they are. If they're fairly balanced, and I don't mean any judgment, because, I mean, we're all traumatized people living in a traumatized world, and we've all suffered terrible blows to our psyches in some way or another throughout life. It's pretty easy if you can just believe that they're there, or just suspend disbelief until they can show you. So I can't tell you how many times. Here's an amazing story that happened to me personally. So I'm in a 12-step program, and I celebrated 25 years of sobriety. And I went back to Palm Springs to celebrate my birthday, and I was sitting at the Palm Springs airport. Actually, I wasn't sitting. I was walking through on the way home, and I just suddenly had this urge to sit down. So for everybody that's listening, you know, a lightning bolt didn't come out of the sky. I didn't hear the voice of God saying, "Sit down, Margo, right now." That's not what happened. I had an inner urge, an inner feeling to sit down. And I didn't override it with my brain. I didn't say, well, there's no reason to sit down. I mean, I did think that, but I was like, okay, it feels like I want to sit down, so I'll sit down. This is how spirit works. It's very subtle most of the time, unless it's really trying to keep you from going through an intersection or something. So I sat down, and I just thought, well, I'll just take this minute, you know, and I was kind of aware that my angels wanted me to sit down. So I sat down. And I looked around. There was nobody around in the airport. And I just kind of gave thanks and was kind of, you know, realizing how far I'd come and everything. And I went to get my bag to get back up, and there was a penny laying on the floor right between my feet. And I would have seen it when I put my bag down. You know, because when you move, you sit down, you put your bag in front of you, you're looking at the floor to make sure you don't hit yourself in the knee or whatever, right, with your bag. So it wasn't there when I sat down. I looked around. There was no other change anywhere, no one else around. I picked up the penny. It was 1983, the year I got sober.
Incredible.
What are the odds of that happening?
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So, yeah.
Do you hear a lot of stories like that with that type of coincidence?
I do. Just amazing things. I mean, even my partner, Tiffany, her mother passed away last August, and, you know, she's got orbs, and she showed me one day in our bedroom, there was this huge rainbow, and we don't have any prisms in there. That part, where the apartment we were in right then had no, like, direct sunlight. It was just kind of at a curve or whatever. It's kind of indented a little bit. So it was usually in shadow. And there was just like no reason for there to be this rainbow in our room for 20 minutes. And then another time we were driving and we were looking up at this cloud, and she got out and I snapped a picture. And not only was there this amazing, like, you know, really beautiful, bright, like comet type of thing across the sky, but directly under it there was a yellow orb. So, I mean, it's just, my book is full of just amazing things like this. My dog passed away in July, and 2 days before she died, my little dog came in and started barking at me. Now, again, listen up, folks. The voice of God didn't say, Margo, go outside. Okay? my dog came in. The angel sent my dog. And my dog was barking like crazy. And he never does that. And he'd just been outside, so I was like, what's going on? So the rational brain is going, what's going on? Dog doesn't need to go to the bathroom. And then he kept barking. And so, again, I overrode my intellect and said, let's just go see if the dog wants to go out. We'll take the dog out, right? So I walked outside. I said, what is it, Max? What is it? And he just peed like 10 minutes before. I walked around the corner, and you guys will see this in the back of my book. It's the back cover of my book. I walked outside, and up in this perfectly blue sky, there is a figure in the clouds of a figure. It looks like an angel with an outstretched hand, and there's a hand of God coming down in the clouds to meet this hand. No other cloud in the sky. And it's unmistakable. I mean, you can see the fingers in the cloud coming down. And it looks like an angel reaching out a hand or an angel with a trumpet, and they're just barely touching. It's almost like that Michelangelo painting that we see. It was just astonishing. And I just stood there and I thought, wow, what if I hadn't listened to Max? So people, Spirit is reaching out to you. Spirit reaches out to you in dreams. Spirit reaches out to you through other people. How many times you walk by and somebody just says something to you and you're like, oh my God, wow. Here's another amazing story. So I was traveling to Dallas-Fort Worth, and I actually was flying home from the East Coast. And my plane, something was wrong with the plane, and we got stopped in Dallas. And they put us up in some motel, and I had to be back at the airport at 4:30 in the morning. So it's 4:30 in the morning in Dallas. I'm desperately trying to find a cup of coffee because I can't function even at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I see this lady. No. Let me back this up. So I'm walking down trying to find coffee, and there's an ATM machine on the left and an escalator down to baggage claim. As I walk by the ATM, a voice in my head says, which I interpret to be God, take $200 take some money out of the ATM. And I said, why would I need to take money out of the ATM? And God said, you just need to take money out. And I said, well, how much money? And they didn't really get an answer. So I was like, well, okay, I'll take $200 out. So I took $200 out. I came down, and I was coming down the escalator to see if there was coffee down there. And there's this woman in the baggage area with kids and dogs and crates and luggage everywhere, sobbing her guts out. And she's crying on the phone going, I can't, you don't understand, I don't have it, I don't have it, I don't have it. And she's absolutely bereft, and nobody's helping her. And so I looked at her, and God said, give her the money. And I said, oh, okay. And then God said, no, that's not enough. It has to be $300. I said, okay. So I went down. I literally put my suitcase in front of her because I don't want to drag it up there. Made eye contact with this crying lady. And I said, would you watch my, she's like, yeah. She's still on the cell phone. I don't have it. I go back up, get the extra money out of the ATM, come back down, and gingerly reach out and stuff this big wad of cash in her pocket, in her jeans pocket while she's on the phone. And she's like freaking out, right? So she's like, I got to go. So she looks at me and she's like, what are you doing? And I said, God told me to give you $300. And she says, she bursts into tears, and she goes, oh my God, we were on Alaska Airlines flight. I missed security because of the baby formula. And now they're charging us $75 each to get on the plane. And I didn't know that she had herself and 3 kids. And I'm really bad at math, so I didn't know that was $300.
Insane.
But God did.
Wow.
But God did.
What's it like?
The great thing, I can tell you this. The best thing about that story is I got to tell it literally on a bus full of atheists.
No kidding.
No, seriously. I was on another business trip, and I was on a shuttle bus or something, and all these atheists were going to an atheist convention. And I was like, hey, guys, let me run this by you. What do you make of this story?
Well, I need to know the reaction of that.
Well, of course, they're very intellectual, because I didn't say it was me. I said, this is, there's a friend. And they said, well, it sounds really full of details. I think it was you. And I said, yeah, it was me. And they said, I really don't know how to answer that. I said, what force is that? There was something that knew this woman was in distress, who picked somebody out of the crowd who had the financial means to help her and who would listen. And God put me in that airport at 4:30 in the morning when I would never be there otherwise. And they said, we can't explain that. And I just thought that was awesome.
Well, that leads to my next question in regards to atheism and people who do not believe. You heard and you had this experience with the voice of God. You've dealt with angels. Is God and everybody's guardian angel still around people who are atheists?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I always tell people, you may not believe in God, but God believes in you. They don't care. A thing does not need our belief to exist. You can really get way into existentialism here. I believe if a tree, falls in the forest, yes, it makes a sound. It's still a tree, even if no one is there to hear it. So God still believes in us, even if we don't believe in God.
And I realize that's an obvious answer to that question, but I guess what I'm trying to find out here is, what if that message never gets through to the person? And the reason why I ask is, when my friend who'd passed away 6 weeks ago, he was very atheist. And a few hours after I found out, I had an absolute panic attack that he was stuck in absolute pitch black and could not move. And I talked to a couple of my psychic intuitive friends that I'm extremely close with and that I trust, and I said, what do I do? Because I was getting filled with anxiety. And they're like, well, you have to try and go get him and get him to the light. So they sent me there. I've never done that before.
Tell us what happened.
Well, he was sitting down on a stairway. He happened to be he had passed away on a stairway. And I walked up to him and I basically said, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, he was a very crude, crass guy. He's like, hey, where the F am I? What happened? And I said, I had to break it to him that he was dead. It was hard. And Samantha Mowat, who is an ET contactee, she does a show here. She can verify this story because she's the one who walked me through it. And basically what I had to do is, what Samantha had told me, let me take a step back here for a second. What Samantha had told me, Margo, was that those people who go to the other side and they are sitting in pitch black, it's not a very good place to be because the soul can be attacked for those who do not have much belief. And it was funny because as I was standing around him, I could see things moving. I could see black eyes all over the place. And I was like, dude, you got to come with me. We got to get out of here right now. And it was a process, I would say, took about half an hour. But we finally got him out of there. And to this day, it's funny because his niece contacted me last night asking, I heard you had an experience with my uncle after he passed. Can I please know about this? So I had to have that entire conversation with her a couple hours before showtime. So for those who don't believe, what is this black place? Is it purgatory?
We're going to go to a break soon, aren't we? Okay, we got a few more minutes.
We got about 3 minutes.
I would say,
3 minutes.
Right, okay. So I would not say that it's necessarily purgatory. Purgatory is a very specific dimension that the believers can go to too if they have karma or if they have things to understand about their life, or if they have unresolved things that they need to be accountable for. It sounds to me like he was sort of stuck between dimensions and in a lower astral realm because that was his vibration. So he didn't have a lot of light in him, right? Because he wasn't connected to the light and wasn't living the light in him. So therefore, he went to the place that was most compatible with his vibration, with the level of darkness that was in him or the lack of light. I wouldn't characterize that as necessarily purgatory. In my experience of purgatory, people are not necessarily tortured. It's just, it's not a predatory place. It's just a place where people go to learn. It's not a great place because it's not comfortable. I mean, you're not sourced fully and, it doesn't feel good and you definitely want to get out of there. But it sounds like he was in sort of type of hell dimension.
Well, we got him the hell out of there. And since then,
Amen.
He has been hanging out with his family and he has been giving signs left, right, and center. Yesterday, his young niece, who I was talking to today, last night, she felt water hit the top of her head, and she lives with her grandpa and grandma, and so she goes up to her grandpa. She goes, "Papa, I need you to check the roof. I think it's leaking." And he went and checked absolutely everywhere, and there was no leak to be found, yet she still had water on her head.
Oh, wow, I love it.
Yeah, and I guess his mother recently has been seeing wet marks on her floor, almost like in the shape of a wet butt. And you have to know my buddy in order to understand. He was messed up, sick sense of humor. And anyways, I guess one night she tried to walk through it, and invisibly there was something she hit.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were
I
a
had
very
guy tell me
tight
that the other
family.
day. He said he backed up into something and he thought something like really there too. And they do have substance. And, we can talk a little bit later. I don't know if you want to or not, but similar situation. There was a mother who was really grieving the death of her son who died from an overdose, an accidental heroin overdose. And she wanted him to come see her so badly. And I finally had to tell her, you got to get the part of you that went into that grave with him out. You've got to get him out of there.
And on that note, with the music, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll finish the story more with Margo Mateas right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
One sec.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Welcome back to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. We want to thank everyone listening in the United Public Talk Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 160 countries around the world. Thank you for allowing us to be your nighttime entertainment, maybe daytime, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for being with us and enjoying your support. If you're a listener on Revolution Radio, it is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight, and oh my God, if you're an SOR space traveler, Erenterectasia. I think that's the word. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it again. If you're an SOR space traveler, head into the Facebook group. Bill will have it right there for you. Use it wisely, because I'm just going to butcher it all night. He's on his game on this Monday night. Thank you, Bill. But we're just going to keep that one nice and quiet. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our show on iTunes. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, you can sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. You can check out my latest blog, listen to some great music from Bumblefoot, our resident guitar god, read up on the SOR Space Wire, and if you've had a weird sighting that you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Mike Schmidt is waiting to talk to you. Tonight we are talking angels and aliens. Margo Mateas is our guest tonight. She is just an incredible intuitive lady. This lady is so powerful with her gifts, she actually gets requested by Fortune 500 companies out there. We bring Margo back in. Margo, welcome back.
Hello, everybody.
Right before the break, we were talking about angels and connections and helping steer people who may have been atheist or agnostic or have zero type belief. And I had to unfortunately interrupt your story there.
I don't remember the story now.
Oh, that's okay. We can move on.
Absolutely.
Before I get to my next question, I have a question from our audience in the Spaced Out Radio chat room, and they're asking, Margo, what do you think of the recent occurrences of the trumpet-like sounds people have been hearing that don't seem to have an earthly source?
I haven't heard of the trumpet sounds. I've heard the moaning and the groaning and the hum. Haven't heard about the trumpet. So I can't really speak to that.
We have had a few reports on this recently.
I think that, from my perspective, right, it's obviously supernatural. So the question is, who's controlling this supernatural thing and why is it coming? So a lot of people say we're in the end times, but they've said that for a really long time too, right? And the Bible talks about the trumpets of Jericho and things like that. So I don't know if it's an angelic trumpet or not, because I haven't experienced it and I haven't really discussed that. So I'll have to.
Well, let's move on.
Your advisement.
Let's move on. Vivian is asking. She says, I'm pretty sure I can hear my guardian spirits and our higher spirit talking to me in my head sometimes. I speak with them every day. Most people who find out about it or hear me seemingly talk to myself give me the weirdest looks. Am I insane or am I correct that I do really hear them?
It's funny because I go through the house and I talk to myself too all the time, and I get paid to be a crazy lady, so that's kind of cool. But Vivian, I feel like you have three spirits around you. I think one of them is maybe a grandmother. So I think that you do have angels, and I think that there are definitely people around. I do feel like there's a little bit of interference, so there's like more people in your party than you may have wanted to invite. So I feel good about maybe three of the people or the guys that you're speaking to, but I feel like there's other beings in the room too that might be speaking to you or maybe kind of making it a little bit chattery in your head. And I just maybe want to advise you to kind of trim down your party list a little bit and just make sure that, the connections that you have are strong and clear. And I do see definitely at least three very powerful positive guides for her, for sure.
What do you mean by pare down that party list?
It just feels to me like when I kind of tune into her, it feels like she's got her little core, but then there's some other stragglers. There's some other energies that may be coming in. They may just be observing her. They may just be listening. I don't feel like she's really aware of them. So these would be, cosmic marauders, other energies, other entities, things that may be drawn to her light. And also, if she is a good channel, which obviously she is if she's hearing these things and communicating strongly, everything's looking for a good channel. The light is looking for good channels. The dark is looking for good channels. So the more psychically developed a person is, the more light they are. Ironically, the more they are pursued by the dark. And we have to assume that there's going to be sort of unsavory elements hanging around trying to get in that door. So extra protections. The more psychic a person is, the more protected they must be.
Shar is asking, or saying, she was taught that angels have free will like us, so they don't have to stay with us, but they always do. Do you agree with that?
I would say yes. I mean, they choose to stay with us, and certain angels may come and go. Like, people say you're assigned your guardian angel, and they will stay with you through life or maybe many lifetimes. The archangels and such, they can choose who they want to support and who they don't. So many times someone will have a session with me, and they'll say, I don't know who my guardian angel is or whatever. And as I call in, their guides, Jesus, Archangel Raphael, Michael, whoever, will come in. And they're just as clear as if they walked in the room, that you and I were standing in, Dave. And I'll say, Jesus is here. And then they'll say, oh, I love Jesus. I used to always talk to him, or I know him. And I will ask them, do you know Raphael? Archangel Raphael. Oh, yes, I know him very well. We used to be closer. I pray to him every night or something. So most of the time the person knows the angel that's connected to them. Sometimes they don't. And then that's when you kind of start that relationship. But yeah, angels can, they can choose you. For instance, the Hindu god Ganesh is the patron saint of the career cards. And Ganesh is the breaker of obstacles. Well, this is my path in this lifetime to help people break these obstacles, right? Cast off these entities that don't belong to them and become as free as they can possibly be. So Ganesh just came to me. I didn't even really know who he was. I had some of the statues around. I didn't really know. I have Buddha and, these things that we're drawn to, but I didn't really know who he was. And so I have learned to know him, but he picked me. So they will come and go and work with people as they choose. And sometimes they've known them in previous lifetimes. Sometimes they know them on a soul level. Sometimes it's just, hey, you need some support, buddy. I'm going to be there for you. So, yeah, they do have free will. Absolutely.
Ron is asking, Margo, do you cross earthbound souls over?
Yes.
How do you go about doing that?
It depends on the person, obviously, and the situation you're talking to. I was traveling one time, and I had just come across, actually I was going to tape a psychic show up in Sacramento, in Lori McDonald's area. Hi, shout out to Lori who's listening tonight. And I literally I was delayed to the studio because of this accident, and it was a motorcyclist. And as we came by the accident scene, I could see the motorist standing off, out of his body, off in the grass, looking at the accident, just like what you were talking about, Dave. And he was completely in shock. He was like, what happened? What's going on? I just want to get home to my wife and kids. And I, I'm psychically, telepathically talking to him while I'm in the cab. No, I'm so sorry. You just passed away and you can't go back and everything's different and you have to go to the light. And so, helped him cross. And then there was a time when I was in, by the Grand Canyon, there's a gas station there, and there was actually a statue of it. It wasn't a statue, it was a stuffed tiger. And my partner at the time walked in and she said, there's a soul trapped in that tiger, you got to get it out. And I walked by and sure enough, there was a soul in there. And so released that and put it to the light. Have helped many people pass, in their final days in hospice and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's different for everybody. It depends on what they're holding on to and what they're scared of. Just like you did, Dave, you have to work with them and negotiate with them to the point where they come out of their shock and their fear and they realize that, oh, okay, I do have to let go and this is really happening and I've got to move on.
And of course, a shout out to Lori, if she is listening, because I think she is. She said she was going to. Lori, you can't see me, but I am waving profusely at you right now. Hello, how are you, my dear? She was a guest just a short while ago. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the way I roll around here. I got one more question for you before we're going to get back to the interview, and this because we always like to involve our audience in here. And Ron is asking, are you able to tell if his friends have a negative attachment, and is it possible for him to help her with that?
I do feel a lot of darkness around this person. I feel that there may be drug or alcohol use or abuse going on. I think the situation you could classify as somebody's being in a dark place. We say that as a colloquialism, but sometimes it's really true. People really do get in a truly dark place. I feel that she is in a dark place. I feel that she is being affected and controlled by entities. And I don't think he can help her. The best way that he could probably help her would be either to engage a shaman or someone like myself to maybe try to lift that from her, or to get her, the best way would be to pursue her and reaching out for some kind of spiritual help like that on her own. And all she would have to do is just realize, hey, I'm in a bad place. I don't know what's going on. Just work with me, help me figure out what's going on and clear whatever needs to be cleared. So I wish you luck with that one.
All right, Claudia, she's just getting warmed up. This is the first of about her 35 questions that will come through, because she is just full of questions, and I love her for it. She is asking, Margo, can you tell her what angels are with her? She's still seeing 1111, 222, 333, 444, 555, and number patterns.
I see Archangel Raphael with her, and if she doesn't know, or to the listeners that don't know, 1111, and what are the other angels numbers that she said?
222, 333, and 555.
Right. Okay. So all those, whenever you see repeating numbers like that, it is a sign from the angels, and they all have specific meanings. But the angels are really trying to get her attention. I do see Archangel Raphael with her, along with a couple others. He's the one that's coming forward right now the most strongly. And Archangel Raphael is the archangel of healing. So he wants to heal something with her. It's probably an emotional issue, a breakup, some kind of a hurt. Feels like it's around the heart. He wants to lift that out of her and show her like how to love herself at a deeper level, and how to trust in someone that's not going to leave her. And that's one of the most beautiful things that the angels give us, is if we allow them, they will be consistent, they will be caring, they literally will never leave us. And that's something that many of us here on the earth plane desperately need.
Mm-hmm. You know what? It's something that I think everybody needs. They need that confirmation, especially if they are sitting there searching for something that they can't have. One of the things that I have learned over my course of learning spirituality is what I like to call the soul voice. It's that little voice in your head that never seems to be wrong, and it always seems to try and take you down the path that you're supposed to go. But because we're human, we always decide to take the path less traveled, or the path that's pretty worn down, and it always leads to some sort of anarchic way, in whether it's personal drama, car accident, or anything along those lines. How important is it for people who have a spiritual belief, or even if they don't, to start listening to that little voice in their head that is trying to guide them?
Well, it's extremely important to listen to the little voice in your head that's trying to guide you. For a lot of people, though, they just don't have that one voice. They have a voice that's trying to help them, and many voices that may be trying to hurt them. But yes, we must all listen to the still small voice, because that is the voice of God. That is the voice of Spirit. And like I said, it doesn't really come with a clang and a roar. It comes with a whisper and a small urging and a tap on the shoulder. That's how they communicate with us. So when people say, Spirit's not talking to me, Spirit is talking to you. You're just not hearing it. Either you're dismissing it because you're being too intellectual, or you're just not paying attention because you're too driven, or you're too in workaholism, or you're too much in fear, or whatever it is. Fear always closes the channel. So it's actually easier to connect with Spirit when you're brokenhearted than when you're afraid. So listen for that still small voice. Listen for that urging. Listen to the voice of your soul that says, hey, this is what we need to do. This is the path. Because it's always there.
How do people hear it? I've been asked that question a number of times, and I really don't know how to answer that question. That voice is just there.
Well, it is. It is, and sometimes it's blocked, right? Sometimes it is blocked. So we say it's always there. It's always innate within us. It's like every car has a steering wheel, but if the key's not on, it's not going to be active, right? It's going to get locked up. So you have to have the key on, and that key is spirituality and cleaning out the channel and allowing everything to flow the way it's supposed to flow. But the voice within is It's a guidance, it's a knowing, and we feel these things in our body. So if you tune into your body, and this is another way that people who are super intellectual are disturbed by their brain, because the brain cuts them off from the body. So you have to be in the body to hear this voice, because it's not the voice in your head. It's going to come from deep in your gut, in your stomach. It's going to come in your heart. You're going to see things like, I see like a 3x5 index card sometimes with like Helvetica type on it in capital letters and just appear on somebody's forehead, one word. So that's one way. You could call that the voice, but that's a psychic way of connecting. The voice within comes through dreams. It comes in those moments when there's silence and it can percolate up. So a great way to tune into this is like if you think about a relationship. So in those moments, if you've ever had a relationship that didn't work out, that you subsequently left, or maybe you're still wondering about it, you know what it feels like, because there'll be moments when your gut just starts clanging and you just start feeling, this doesn't feel good, and maybe I shouldn't be here. But it's always usually associated with a feeling in the body, right? So your heart will ache, your stomach will be upset, thoughts will come in your mind, songs will come on the radio, you may have dreams, you may find yourself speaking things and go, where did that come from, right? So it's there, it's just we have to clear away the noise to get to it. Now, me, even though I'm a medium and a psychic, I really can't meditate without music. I have to have music to calm my mind. Otherwise, my mind just goes off on a tangent and, I can't control it. So things like just listening to calming music, doing things that are meditative, yoga, taking walks, doing pottery, any of these things can quiet the mind enough to where the body can get into a space where it can actually communicate.
It just happened, and for me, and I know for a lot of people who listen to this show, it just happened for them. Do we have to pay more attention to that spontaneity from the spiritual side for when it does happen?
Oh, yeah, because spirit is talking all the time. It's just a question of us paying attention and being present for it. It's there. It's not there. It's not there. It is there. It's just, it's too loud in your head, or your head is saying, oh, no. It can't be that. No, I don't want to hear that, because it's something foreign to the brain. So the brain will kick it out and say, no, I'm not going to pay attention to that, or I'm going to override that program. And you are in charge of your own soul and your own spirit. And so you need to be a better guardian and say, no, I'm going to allow these things, like a crazy idea. Go take money out of the ATM. Like, that's a crazy idea. Why would any rational person do that?
Mm-hmm. I can understand that, but a lot of people are afraid to hear what they are hearing. That's why they tune it out. Maybe some people out there believe it's evil. Maybe some people believe that it's just, voices in their head that, they just slough off and don't pay attention to because, well, you just don't pay attention to those types of things if you're sane.
Well, that's not, so throw that notion out, because that's just your head and that's just society trying to control you, and it comes from the church that tried to control us and keep us disconnected from our spirits, right? So here's the hard and fast rule, guys. If the voice in your head is telling you to hurt yourself, to hurt somebody else, that life is not worth living, that everything is crap and it's not ever going to get better, that is not the voice you should be listening to. Because the angels do not talk to you like that. The angels and the light never talk about despair. They always believe in you. They always love you. You are always worthy in their sight, and you are always loved. So if there's anything going on in your head that says anything other than that, and I mean, we all have those fleeting moments. Here's an interesting story. So I was traveling a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago, and I'd been on the road for a long time, and I get a little vulnerable when I'm on the road. And I guess maybe it's because maybe I leave parts of myself to places or something, but unknowingly. Anyway, I came back, and I had all these really intense suicidal thoughts. Now, having had the background I've had, like many light workers, I had a very difficult childhood. Suicide was something that was on my mind quite a bit. And I tried it a couple times and God saved me every time. And so, but this was really different. So usually, like, my own thoughts are in my head. These were sort of outside of my head coming in. And I was like, what's going on? And so I thought, I wonder if I'm under spiritual attack. And I wasn't doing anything spiritual at the time. And I mean, like as a profession or anything. And so it got really intense, and I tuned in, and I said, where is this coming from? And I saw like a battle map, and it literally was like points of light. And it was coming from up above, and they were looking down. I lived in Sedona at the time. And they said, if we take out this light, we'll have a better strategic advantage in this area. Because it was just like a brighter light. And that's what it was. And I was like, oh my God, somebody's targeting me because of my light? What the heck's going on? So I called 2 healers that I work with. And one of them said it was a coven. And another one, said what they were going to do to help me and stuff. And they did, they got me through that. But I was able to at least discern, this is not just my usual, I'm tired, I'm a little discouraged. This was like persistent, really strong, intense. And for stuff like that, you need to reach out and get help. But if it's that still little voice inside of you that says, do this, don't do that, this is right, this is wrong, the voice inside you should always be trying to lift you up. And I remember when I was in a lot of despair, right before I got sober, I would start to pray, actually, right after I got sober. I would pray, God, help me believe in the tiny spark of life in me that believes I'm okay. And that spark has grown and grown and grown and grown. And now it's fueled by Archangel Uriel, which it always was. He's the angel of light. But that's what your inner voice should be doing. It should be guiding you to help other people, to be there for yourself, to do the right thing. If it's clanging, if it's really noisy, if it's chaotic, if it's mean, if it's destructive, then you probably have an entity that's affecting you, and you need to get that removed and out of your energy field.
Well, what about dreams? A lot of people believe that they have visitation in their dreams. A lot of people, like myself, do not believe that they even dream because we never remember anything. How important is the connection with angels, loved ones, through dreams?
Well, it's huge. It's absolutely enormous. So many people dream that they see their loved ones, and they're actually with their loved ones. So I remember my stepfather died when I was 7.5, and I remember distinctly like meeting him, and it was like an office space, and we hugged and we talked, and I woke up and I was like 7, and I was like, I know I saw him. I know that I saw him. And so many people talk about that. So the dream space is a place of consciousness where you can move out of your normal everyday consciousness and literally leave your body for a little bit and move up the astral plane to connect with people on the other side. So dreams are very, very, very powerful portals for spirit. They're huge. And, I was just writing this chapter in my book, Freed by the Light, about like my religious background. And I started having dreams when I was 13 I was with these invisible people. And these invisible people and I were always working to catch these invisible things that were growling and had to be contained. And I remember, I grew up in the 70s, and in one of the dreams, these invisible people helped me catch this growling thing and put it in a little jet dry container, those little dishwasher plastic things.
Yes.
And we put it in that. And then in another dream, I was with these same invisible people, and they were my friends, and we were like hanging out in a laboratory of some kind, and we went and we had to catch another growling thing, and this was bigger. And so I had to stuff it inside of like a dollhouse that folded up and had a little turn lock on it. And now I look back and I'm like, I was with angels catching demons in my dreams at 13 and 14 years old. So dreams are just enormously powerful. Enormously powerful. I had a dream just the other night where I was in this house, and it was painted all white. And I came downstairs because somebody had something, like food or whatever. And I came down, I visited with the people, and I went back upstairs to go back to my room. And this was not my house. It was a different house, that we live. Many times we dream, and it's not the house that we actually live in. And when I went up the stairs, my room wasn't there. It was completely gone. And the whole structure had changed completely. And I couldn't find my room. It wasn't there. And what I realized when I woke up, there's more to the dream, but when I woke up, I realized that the house was white and the White House had changed. And here in America, we just had an election where the White House has completely changed. The structure is totally different. So dreams, I just can't overemphasize the importance of dreams. And yes, we do see our loved ones in dreams, and we work stuff out in dreams, and spirit contacts us in dreams, and God contacts us in dreams.
What about for those who just can never seem to remember a dream?
Well, there's a couple things you can do. One reason you might not be remembering your dreams is because you're actually leaving your body the minute that you go to sleep. So if you ever have that feeling like you're falling or you jerk yourself awake, that's the soul coming in and out of the body. In medicine, they just say, your muscles are relaxing or whatever. But spiritually, it could be literally you coming in and out of your body. So it could be that the minute you go to sleep, you have a mission somewhere else, and you go and you do that. I used to have these amazing missions that I went on in my 20s. And then now I just go to alternate realities, and I just do very mundane things. It's kind of like Quantum Leap. Like I'll just show up and help somebody work on their car or, handle a family dispute or something. I guess because now I'm doing superhero stuff in this dimension, now that I'm awake. But you can also program yourself. Like, I'm going to remember my dreams. And I've done this many times where I'll say, I want to have a dream about, who I was in a past life. I want to know if I was in a relationship with this person in a past life. I want to see it. So you can actually do lucid dreaming and intentional dreaming. So you can say before you go to sleep, look, Spirit, I'm really serious about this. I want to have a dream about blah, blah, blah. I want to get some clarity. Secondly, you can do lucid dreaming, where if you do dream, you can become aware of it and say, you know what, I want to remember this part. I want to change this part. I used to have recurring nightmares of my teeth falling out. And it's terrifying. And it's a typical anxiety dream, right, because you can't control your teeth falling out. And in the final dream, I just decided that I would string all of my broken teeth together around my neck like a necklace, like a shaman, and I never had that dream again. Because I was like, I'm just going to, stop that. So I just did. But you can also really decide to keep a dream journal, keep a recorder by your bed, and just scribble down, little things like the minute you wake up, just impressions, thoughts, feelings, colors, whatever it is. But you can instruct your subconscious, and especially as aware as you are, Dave, if you can rescue somebody like that, you can remember your dreams or where you're going on the astral plane.
Oh, man, I wish I could. I'm just so tired from working 16, 17 hours a day, including this show, that when I zonk, I am out. And there's a lot of people like that today because, and it's not just me, but there's a lot of people out there who, we live in a 24-hour world. Sleep patterns aren't as normal as they used to be or as maybe the way we want them. And when you have people so focused on making that income and getting the kids to school and making sure there's food on the table and doing their workouts if they want to get healthy, or being creative, or doing their clubs, or going to the hockey rink. There's so many examples we can get that by the time that people finally get to bed, they are so tired that their mind literally shuts right down. And that's what I think happens to a lot of us.
Well, I hear that, but there's a concern in that, because if you're not dreaming, you're not in REM sleep. And if you're not in REM sleep, you're not in restorative sleep, which means that you're going to be chronically anxious and tired and irritable and undersourced. So, really, for people who aren't dreaming at all, go see a sleep specialist, because you may have sleep apnea. You may have a disturbance. You may not be reaching REM. And if you're not reaching REM, which is where we dream, then your body's not restoring itself. And if you don't get the right amount of sleep, you will go crazy. That's a fact.
Well, I got the right radio show for it in case I do.
You do.
Absolutely. Seth is asking, are there any negative physical feelings associated with these types of communications, whether it's in a dream state, whether it's in that little soul voice, or whatever it could be?
No, there shouldn't be any negative physical sensations. The only unpleasant thing that could happen, and it's not really unpleasant, is when I'm tuned to the angelic vibration, and it's happening right now. And Doreen Virtue, of course, who is a writer who writes all the time about angels, talks about this. There's an angelic frequency that's a very high-pitched tone, and it sounds like tinnitus. And they're doing this really super loud in my ears right now. That can be a little unpleasant, but you can ask them to turn it down. The ringing in the ears is just kind of like a presence that the angels are there and that you're attuned to that frequency. That's another way you can tell light from dark. So when you work with the light, you should feel calm, you should feel stable, you shouldn't feel dizzy, you shouldn't feel nauseous, you shouldn't feel heavy anywhere, you should feel strengthened, enlivened, rejuvenated, clear, and happy, for sure.
I personally have done that. I would recommend that to anybody, because anytime I get that sound, that ringing in my ears, I just ask them to turn it down, and almost immediately it goes away. So it does work. That I have tried.
Mm-hmm. It sure does.
Let's get to another question here from our audience. This one comes from Joe. Joe says, some people communicate with angels. Some people think the angels are aliens. Do you ever think the communication you receive is coming from aliens rather than angels?
That is such a great question. I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's a really, really relevant question. No. With me, emphatically no, because I'm very sensitive to alien vibrations. And I have the gift of discernment. So that's something that the angels and God have given me, which is the ability to see what is hidden, to see what the truth of something is. So I have a very built-in BS meter. And there have been times when entities and angels and aliens are all present, and the aliens will pretend to be something else, and it'll be shown to me. I'll pull something back or check a place, or look past the face that they're showing me, and I'll see exactly what it is. And they don't get away with that with me. I think a lot of people who don't have this level of discernment may believe that they are connecting with angels. And I had a woman call me about 3 or 4 years ago, and she wanted a soul clearing, and she said that she worked with angels in the 5th dimension. And I got this, and the angel she was talking about I'd never heard of before, and it was some weird name. And I knew it was alien, and I didn't think that she knew that it was alien. And so she says, well, I work with the angels. And I said, okay. So I asked my angels, do you know her? And they said, no, we don't. It's just kind of like God knows everybody. But then, like I said, there are angels that really know people. They know your soul. They said, no, we don't know her. We don't work with her. And so I told her that truth. And I said, I don't know who these beings are that you're talking to, but they're not angels. And they're not angelic. And, it was alien. So I'm very, very attuned personally to what that difference is. And I'm 100% positive that it's not. And people experience miracles, and it's no strange hokey pokey. You don't have to do this with your energy field, and you don't have to do that, and all these strange healing modalities that are popping up and stuff. It's just the angels come in, people can feel them, they can see them, they instantly can feel things changing and shifting for the better in their energy field. And I had another incident. A friend called me and she said, I have this weird headache. I said, oh, okay. And so she said, it's right on the back of my neck, back of my head. So I just tuned into it, and I saw this spiritual crab, this energetic parasite. And it looks like the things that were in the alien pods in the movie Alien, except it doesn't have that big long tube, but it's this kind of beige sort of crab thing. And it was attached to the back of her head. And so I just reached out and kind of snapped it in half and killed it and threw it away. And I said, where did you get this? And she said, oh, I was with a friend last night, and she was running my bars. Well, there's this movement where people run your bars. And she said, oh, it's this new thing my friend learned, and she does Reiki. And boy, when she was doing it, it felt amazing. Like I was just jumping all over the place, and my body was, like bouncing all over the place. And right away, I knew that was not angelic. So I know that there's somebody listening on the call right now who just got back from an angel training in Hawaii with Doreen Virtue. And they will tell you the angelic vibration is very subtle. So if your body's bouncing around, like you plugged into a light socket, that's not angelic. That's not angelic. Your body shouldn't be going crazy. It's not really, it's just very subtle and gentle, very gentle. So that's kind of like knowing what the differences are and how these things come across. And the angels don't have an ulterior motive. They don't. Here's something, I realize I'm speaking in sentence fragments, but I just thought of something else, a client that came to me. This lady came to me and she said these beings came to her and they appeared to her as beings of light, and they told her all this apocalyptic stuff about the earth and how it was going to be a fireball, and that she was this appointed priestess that had to get the word out, and her boyfriend was this major being for mankind that had to do this and this and this. And I hear this, and I can hear that there are, and feel that there are listeners who are resonating with this, or who will resonate when they hear this later. That is not angels. Angels don't do that. Angels don't come and tempt you with your ego and say, oh, you're so important to the world. The only thing the angels ever said to me, and I asked them in 2006, who am I and what am I supposed to be doing here? And they said, no. And I said, what do you mean, no? And they said, no, we're not going to tell you. I said, why? And they said, you wouldn't believe us. And that was 10 years ago. And I was a huge corporate trainer at the time, and I would not have believed a word. Oh, you're going to be a psychic and write a book called Freed by the Light. No, I wouldn't have believed it. So you see, it's very subtle. And then in 2008, they told me, you are a precious natural resource which needs to be conserved and protected. And I was in a very destructive relationship at the time, and I didn't get it. I was like, what does that mean? They never came and said, oh, there's this grand plan, and they don't talk to you like that. They're just very present in the moment. It's not about the ego. It's about being of service. And they don't give you apocalyptic visions. They do not give you apocalyptic visions. They don't tell you to move to higher ground. They don't work on that kind of fear frequency. So any kind of being that's come to you with any kind of fear frequency, that's not angelic.
That's a very big statement there. Very big statement when you say that. Let's get to...
It's true.
Let's get to another question here. What then do you know, as we start to switch gears here, into extraterrestrials? What do you know about what extraterrestrials are doing when they visit here?
I don't know a lot about what they're doing here because I don't really deal with them in this dimension, okay? So there are people who are contactees, and they're having actual experiences with them in this dimension. That's not an experience that I want to have. This is why I really restrict who comes to my spiritual parties, right? I only want really super high vibe beings there. So I'm very selective about who I work with and who I allow into my energy field. So I'm not the best person to talk about, the benevolent ones and how they're helping and the bad ones. I mostly deal with the bad ones because I have to remove them from people's energy field. I have to break the ties that they have with them. I have to remove their nanotechnology from people's brains. So I'm not really in touch with the benevolent beings that may be here helping. I'm more in touch with the cosmic marauders that are really victimizing people and acting in ways that they shouldn't, big time.
So you remove implants is what you do?
Well, now that's a very interesting thing because I think there are people who really specialize in that. I went to see a woman a few years ago in Flagstaff, and that was what she did. I wouldn't hang out a postcard that says, I remove implants. What I do is go into the energy field, and God, my ears are like ringing big time right now. I go into the energy field, and we remove what is there. So energetically, if there's some scaffolding or nanotechnology or implants that are there, yes, the angels and I will diffuse them and remove them and take them out of the system. But I think there are people who kind of do that as a specialty, and I don't want people to think that that's what I do as a specialty. It's kind of like going to an internist versus a GP. Maybe they overlap in certain ways, but that's not my specialty, removing implants.
What do the angels think of the ETs?
The first thing that came up beside me was like they hate them. And then there's people probably would say, well, angels don't hate anything. Well, no, they don't hate anything, but they certainly get disgusted by things. They get upset by things. They get frustrated. It's constant interference. They feel sad about it. It's like they're so frustrated because they want to be in our energy field. They want to help us. They want us to be united with the light. And then there's these constant interferences and things that shut them out of a person's energy field and things that take possession of a person so that the angels can't connect. And it's like, constantly, trying to swat a bunch of flies, when you're just trying to get across the room. It's kind of like that for them. They're very frustrated. They feel very sad. And I would say a little angry. It's like it shouldn't be this difficult. It's not supposed to be this difficult. We should have won the war by now. It's, they want things to be better. They just want all that interference to be eliminated.
Is it a war, or is that just a terminology you're using?
Definitely a war. It's definitely a war. It's definitely a war. And the reason I say it's really a war is because when I started to get into people's energy fields, and I started talking to these occupying energies. Now, there's like different classifications. So there's, demonic energies and entities. There's spiritual parasites. There are different types of energy. And then there's aliens. And so when I got into this kid's head who was autistic, and he had just eaten some candy, chocolate that, people consume everywhere, all over the world, mass-produced stuff. And he literally got flipped in like kind of a hell dimension. And he was screaming on the couch, dragon, and diving under the couch covers and peeing himself. And he was 5 years old. And his parents had been working with their family, so they called me and they sent me a video of him. And he was so bereft. And so when I tuned in, I could see this black dragon, like with talons, like literally trying to get him. And he was screaming, dragon, and trying to get away from it by diving under the couch covers. And when I got into his head, I was surprised because there wasn't really a demon there. There was like scaffolding. And I was like, what is this scaffolding? It was like trying to take over the structure. And so I called in, my guides, and I said, who is this and who does this belong to? And, this being showed up and said, it's ours. And I said, well, why are you here? Well, we got in through the food. And I said, well, I know that because I knew that intrinsically. And I said, well, what are you doing? And we're just trying to suppress the light, We have to scramble the channel. He's a good vessel. We want to use him as a vessel. And so I started to see that over and over again, all of these energies see us as real estate and broadcasting stations. We are either this empty space that needs to be occupied and taken over so that they can expand their territories, just like they saw me. There's this light, let's take it out. Or, we're broadcasting stations, and those of us that are very sensitive, if they can move into that space and broadcast their frequency, it's like moving and occupying a country and taking over the satellites, right? Then you're going to have greater control over the communication. And so over and over again, when I get in there, it's who owns this? Who has the deed? And so an amazing story of this that's in my book is this lady named Regina. And Regina came to me when I was a holistic fair. And I looked at her, and she was completely desperate. And she just said to me, I don't know what to do. I've done everything. I don't know what to do. And when I looked at her, I could see that she was just in really thick chains. And I said, you're in chains. And she said, I know. I don't know why. And she sits in the pews of one of America's biggest mega churches and had been there for 13 years, had grown up immersed in religion, and was absolutely tormented. So we did a session. I get in there, and this is the first time I understood this concept. And so I get into her soul, and there's this division of light and dark. And so I said, hey, what's going on here? And the dark said, she's ours. And I said, no, she's not. And they said, yes, she is. And I said, no, she's not. And so I was at a stalemate. So I turned to the angels and I said, what do I do? And they said, ask for the paperwork. And I said, what do you mean, ask for the paperwork? They said, ask for the paperwork. So I turned to the dark and I said, show me the paperwork. And they showed me a scroll. And it said 1400 on it. And then I said, wait, I got to know more about this. So they showed me her being tortured as a witch in France. They did that in the 1400s. And, they would torture them until the women proclaimed their allegiance to the dark, and then they would kill them anyway. And so literally at the moment, like as soon as that false confession came out of her lips, the dark showed like they snatched her soul and they said, we'll take that. And I said, you can't do that. That's dirty pool. That's not fair. That doesn't belong to you. And so that's when I first started to understand, and I've seen it hundreds of times since then, is that it's about the soul deed. Who owns the deed between light and dark? And I've had so many times people say, I did sell my soul to the devil. I did. How do I get it back? And Jesus will come down and he'll say, he'll pay the price. He literally will hand them, like I've seen it. It looks like a little bouquet of light, like there'll be 5 or 6 lights. And it's funny because the way the dark is, they'll give away 1, but they want 6 in return, 6 pieces of light. And I don't think they're taking souls to do this. I think it's just light, that they're gathering from the cosmos or wherever they get it. They're not taking other people's souls to pay for it, but they pay for it in light. And so it's an exchange. And so the light will come down and pay that price and reclaim that deed. But there's so many times when, the dark's hanging on and I just like, there's the deed. And just the other day, somebody had said, they had literally sold their soul to the devil. And I went down there and I talked to him and he was like, that's mine. And I said, yeah, I know. And then Jesus showed up and Jesus had the deed and the devil like literally took like a claw and tried to cut the deed in half, with his claw. And Jesus was just like, oh, all right, fine. And so he just created like this huge string of deeds. And then he basically toilet papered the devil in the deeds. It was like covered in deeds. It was like 4,000 deeds. And so the devil was like, okay, fine, and he gave up. And that was just the fastest way that Jesus could get the point across. Like, it's ours. There's nothing you can do about it. We're done. And it's really that mentality. It is very militaristic. And when I get in these heads where there's alien installations going on, it is exactly that. This is our territory. We took it over. It's part of our military establishment, and we're not giving it up without a fight.
But that would be
extremely militaristic.
But that would be to assume that all extraterrestrials are bad.
Well, I can't say that because people come to me when they're in distress. They come to me when they have bad things inside of them. People who are lit up and who are being helped don't come to me for help because they don't need it. So I can't say from my perspective that there are not benevolent ETs. I have a natural suspicion of most of them, of ETs, but there are people who report having good experiences, and I don't want to invalidate their experience. I can only speak to what I've experienced and my clients have experienced. And so my job is to get the gook out of your soul and to get you free from whatever's holding you back. And so I would naturally, of course, come across negative entities and negative occupations within these people.
The reason why I say that is I have done a very highly unscientific study on this show, Margo. And I have talked to numerous experiencers, numerous researchers, and the one thing that I conclude, and it opens up a whole Pandora's box to conspiracy theory, and I'm not trying to go down that road, but I have noticed that 7 out of every 10 Canadian people who are abducted are having some sort of positive experience, and yet I would say that average is flipped in the United States. It's the weirdest thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. And, I did have an experience a couple weeks ago with a lady who came to me for help, and she talked about these beings that had been with her and had helped her, and they actually came into our session. And they were not angels, and they were not aliens in the sense that we think of them. They were not, reptilians. They were not Greys. They were not Nordics. They were some sort of, if you saw them, you would call them a light being because they had a lot of light and they were luminous. And they had a great gentle consciousness. So I think that there are civilizations out there that, are really working to try and help the planet. Somebody is, because they turn off our nuclear power plants whenever we're going to get stupid. But yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to that. I don't know who's patrolling and who's in charge of Canada and who's in charge of the U.S. It seems more global than that. I don't know. But what's more concerning to me is what's happening through nanotechnology and smart dust and chemtrails and vaccines and GMOs. I mean, there's insect DNA in vaccines now, and this is what we're seeing is this sort of transhumanism thing, and that's just absolutely terrifying. And that's part of the alien agenda, definitely, that's going on.
Mm-hmm. We're down to about 30 seconds or so before we have to hop out for another break here on Spaced Out Radio. I think it's absolutely incredible. I want to get more into the experiences your clients are having with the extraterrestrials because I think it's important that people learn what is going on. I hope you don't mind that.
No, absolutely, because we have to talk about that for sure.
Absolutely. And we also got to talk about how you help corporations with their spiritual needs.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that. What the hell?
Me too. Thanks, Dave.
Margo Mateas is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. You can check her out. Just Google her. She's everywhere. We'll be back with second hour, or make that hour number 3 right after this.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with the UFOR. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. Final hour with Margo Mateas. Before we bring Margo back on, we do want to thank everyone listening in at the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 160 countries around the world. Good to have you along for the ride as we take over your nighttime. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio family. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener, do us a favor. Visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set an impossible password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. So impossible, I'm not even going to say it. You got to head over to the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook if you're a member and find out the password, because there's just no point. I'm giving up before I even try. Thank you, Bill, for that wonderful effort of trying to make me butcher it. I'm not falling for it this time. Remember, you could listen to us on social media. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show, and follow us on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of activities for you. I highly suggest you check out our website. It's a lot of fun. We try to keep it very interactive. Make sure you join up with the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. We got some real good stuff there for you. Tonight we are talking with Margo Mateas. She is talking aliens. We talked the first 90 minutes of this show about angels. Now we're focusing on the off-worlders. Margo, welcome back to Space Out Radio.
Hey, everybody.
Good to have you along with us. Let's start off with a couple of questions from our audience, and then we'll get back into the extraterrestrials. Eric is asking, Margo, how do you feel about what Ray Kurzweil refers to as the singularity, in which we will become a merger of our biology and technology?
Sadly, I think that's pretty much where we're headed. I mean, you have to have your head in the sand to not see where we're going with artificial intelligence and implants and cloning and transhumanism and all of it. So I think it is the track that we're headed on. I don't think that that's what the angels want for the human race. I don't think that's what the human race wants for the human race, but it's definitely a huge track, and there is a huge cosmic push, to get us to be that way, to kind of create cyborgs. And it's interesting because when I get in people's energy fields and I can actually see the sort of scaffolding, it's basically very Borg-like. I mean, they're really trying to make us into technology. And so I think it is terrifying. And I hope that that's not where we end up.
Yes, it is that AI that seems to be creeping around and scientists keep playing with. It really is almost biblical in a way, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Is there any way for mankind to even combat that at this point with the way technology is moving so fast?
I was really surprised that I could remove nanotechnology through spiritual means. So if you follow matter, right, down to its most basic level, it is spirit. It is ethers, right? It's quantum technology. It's nanoparticles, right? It's life beyond what we can see. So moving it all down to energy and matter, we are able to move this stuff out. We are able to disrupt it. We are able to go in and energetically fry these things and move them out of the energy field. So I think that's where the battle's actually going to be won, is in this spiritual dimension where you're meeting energy with energy and you're destroying energy with energy. Energy can't really be destroyed, but you can disrupt it and you can move it from one place to another and from dimensions and out of spaces and into different places. So to me, I think that's the only place we're ever going to win it, because it's just overwhelming in the physical world, right?
At what point,
thankfully, we are winning it, which is great.
At what point do we finally say enough is enough? Or do we have that ability to even have that voice anymore because people want the latest and greatest? We've become so technologically advanced and so reliant on what is happening. I mean, going more AI just seems like a natural phenomenon now.
Well, it is. There's things you can do to protect yourself, right? So the whole EMF blocking thing, don't live near smart meters if you can, get protection devices around yourself with radiation. All these things are very, very important for the human being because we are an energetic being. and we're affected by these radio waves all the time and by EMF. And protecting yourself is really, really important. So some of us have to make difficult choices, right? We may have to say, I can't live in a place that's like this, or I can't have this much technology, or I have to have shielding. It's important to understand that. And it's so interesting. The last 2 places I lived, one place I was looking, and I didn't even know what a smart meter really was, but I was looking at this place in Laguna Niguel, California, very burby, and the word smart meter popped in my head as a caution. And I was like, what is that? And so I looked it up, and, it's a smart meter, right? It's very high radiation and EMF. And so my angels were like, you can't live there. And so it was very interesting because the 2 places I ended up living in the last 3 years, actually, were built before smart meters were installed. And so, the angels were always moving me to places where I don't have this affecting me. And we do have to protect ourselves with grounding and shielding and protections is very important. Very important.
Let's get to another question.
You can do it.
Here.
You just have to commit to it.
Perfect. Joni is asking, how does one know if they have any attachments, and what can they do about it?
Oh, that's such a great question, Joni. Most people suspect that they may have something going on. When you have attachments, you may be aware of it and you may not be aware of it. You may feel just grumpy, depressed, angry, have outbursts. I have literally had people tell me, nobody likes me, and I don't know why. People just don't like me. They don't want me around. And I don't feel like it's really me that they're reacting to. It's something that's around me or in my energy field that I can't do anything about. If you have energetic issues, you're going to feel trapped. You're going to feel oppressed. You're going to feel like you're trapped inside of a container that you can't get out of. You're going to feel like heaviness around you. You're going to feel like you're moving in mud. Like you take 1 step forward and you take 2 steps back. Lots and lots of negative things will be happening around you. People will react to you in a very negative way. You may even have demonic experiences where things are, talking to you in the dark and, just horrific things like that. Most people, like I said, who have entities suspect that they do because they feel so depressed and they're aware that there's more than them inside of them. This may be something that they're battling for a long time, and they don't know how to make it better. And then other times, things that we just take for granted, like, oh, I'm just grumpy, or I'm just a little depressed, or I just keep having these temper outbursts, or I have an addiction I can't break. We don't realize that those things really and truly have a spiritual cause. There are spirits of alcoholism. There are spirits of addiction. There are spirits that feed on our anger, that use us as puppets. And I remember 2 years ago when I was living in Oklahoma, at the time my in-laws were there, and I found myself walking across the house and like getting stirred up. And it was like, I do talk to myself, but I'm a pretty good counsel. I do talk to aliens, not to aliens, but to angels and stuff. And I caught myself and I was like, what's going on here? And it was like literally there was some being like whispering in my ear, just like, well, do you remember this? And do you remember that? And, you shouldn't have done this. And literally like trying to get me riled up. And I was like, whoa, what is that? It's very subtle. And I called my shaman and I said, clear the house. And sure enough, there was something in the house, and she got it out of my energy field. So, it's kind of like going to the doctor and, getting your annual checkup. I really recommend everybody be checked for entities, whether it's me or a shaman or, a psychic or somebody, because we've all got them. We've all got some kind of attachment, some kind of parasite somewhere we've picked up over life, because that's just life on planet Earth. So the odds are very, very high that you have something or have had something than not having them at all.
Now, can one say a prayer to eject these attachments or the temptations that come along with it?
There are prayers that you can say. Yes, absolutely. The biggest thing that I've learned in doing this work is to really understand like how they perceive you. So, in the movies, when it's always some kind of demonic entity, right? In the movies, like that's the only kind of possession, and that's not that common. It's more common to have some kind of entity in between, with something that's not a demon and not an alien. And also, actually, kind of bring me back to this point in a second, Dave, because I do want to say that there are intergalactic aliens who are demons. So they're actually, we know them as aliens, but they're actually demons. And they've actually told me that. They're like, well, you would call us a demon. And, we just move in and out of people's bodies on Earth, and we come from another planet. We live there, but technically we're demons. So, I come across that a lot. So that's and there are instances when they're both. So what was the question again about this?
Well, can prayer help eject any of those attachments?
Yeah,
or anything?
absolutely. So understand that. Really listen to this part, folks. This is not a contest between your will and the will of whatever is bothering you, okay? Because if your will was strong enough to eject it, you probably would have. So it's like aligning yourself with something that is authoritative enough and strong enough to gain the respect of whatever is occupying you. And so, yes, demons respond to Christ, to Jesus, to God, to the light. Aliens don't always. In their planets, there's nobody called Jesus. So you say, in the power of Christ, they're like, who's that? I could give a crap, And then you have to call in the Galactic Federation and other types of beings. But understand that when you say a prayer, you want to talk about who owns the deed. Okay, you can't respond like you're taught in the movies, like it's really super personal. Okay, like it's your will against theirs. No, you have to make it very clear. I own this property. I live here. This is my space, and my soul is aligned with the light. And this is not open season. Somebody lives here. This is occupied. I own it. It's mine. And therefore, anything that is not of the light has to go. So a great prayer that you can say is, I close my aura to anything but my highest and best good. I'm going to repeat that. I close my aura, or I close my energy field to anything that is not of my highest and best good. And anything that is not compatible with the frequency of light has to leave. You are no longer welcome here. You don't have a right to be here. You must go back to where you came from or be transmuted into light. That is the law. That is made so by my own sovereign will and by the eternal power of the light, which protects me and sanctifies me and claims me and keeps me. You have to let these beings know which side you're on, and that you live there, it is your sovereign space, and that you're also aligned with the power of the light.
Let's move on here. We got a couple more questions here. J.A. is asking kind of a funny question here. Can anybody see where I hid the Tootsie Rolls? No, I'm just kidding on that one. There sometimes I read the question way too fast. All I see is question on there, and I get to it. Let's get back to extraterrestrials for a minute, because you deal with people who have attachments of negative ETs. What type of species are these people dealing with? Is it reptilian? Is it the Greys? Is it a combination of maybe more?
Yes, all of the above. And here's the thing. So when I work with people and I see these things, I'm seeing them in a certain dimension. And so when I try to explain to people, it's like when people come to me, I do this sort of, spiritual surgery on them, right? So I'm cleaning everything out. So I'm kind of like scrubbed up, with my gloves on in the ER, ready to jump in their energy field and, cut out whatever I need to cut out and get rid of whatever I need to get rid of. It's an emergency time because we have a limited time to work in that dimension, right? And so I'm calling in all the angels, and, you know, whatever's there is present, and I'm having this conversation, and we're doing all this stuff. And that's not the time to, like, sit back and go, so where are you from? Right? You know what I mean? It's not a time to, like, have a conversation with that being about where they're from. I did interrogate some galactic demons, you know, with a client that was in London a few years ago, and got some information from them. But I don't normally do that. It's more like, I see you, I understand where you're, you know, like what you are and why you don't belong here, and then whatever spiritual process needs to take place to get rid of them happens. But yes, I mean, I see a lot of energetic dragons. Some of them are reptilians, some of them are not. Definitely have seen grays in people's energy fields. I've definitely seen the nanotechnology. These are these very insidious things. And then there's something that feels a lot like the Borg. And then I just encountered something that was from way, way, way across the galaxy. That was just sort of like in some strange, weird time warp. And so, you know, the universe is very, very, very vast, and there's an array of beings that, you know, contact us and inhabit us for whatever agenda they have.
So you mentioned that you head off almost like into a different dimension. Where exactly are you going to deal with these beings?
That's a great question. I deal with them in the angelic dimension. So the angelic dimension is, it's very protected because the angels are there, and it's like a cartoon universe. So, you know, you can move energy very quickly, you can blow things up, you can, you know, it's very, very much like things don't appear animated, but that's the nature of things, right? So you can just say, I want this to appear, and it will appear. And, you know, I want a cliff, I want this, you know, Archangel Gabriel likes to blast things with a blaster gun, a Gatling gun, you know, things like that. I've had angels put on hazmat suits and go in and scrub somebody's insides out. I mean, you know, it's just, it's very wacky and very wild, and every time I get inside someone's energy field, it's completely different. It's just this wild adventure, this magical mystery tour that I never know, you know, what's going to come out. So but I work in the angelic dimension, which allows for things to move very quickly, and that's like I can clear a person like in an hour session on the phone, because it's the power of that dimension.
So these beings that you were dealing with, whether they're reptilians, greys, which I think are more AI than anything, maybe mantid beings, whoever they may be, what is their reaction when you bring in a team of angels to go clear them out of somebody's personal space?
It depends on the race and the species and their mission. Like, for instance, I had a situation where this lady had, this is an amazing story, it's in my book, Freed by the Light. This lady had ocular migraines for 10 years and went to the Mayo Clinic, which I don't know if you know in Canada, but that's like, you know, huge, very prestigious, very well-respected clinic here in the United States, and had been treated by them for these migraines in her eye and had never been able to fix them. They put her on 30 different medications, and nothing fixed this eye. And this eye was squinting all the time and painful and had migraines. So she called me on the phone, and we talked, and I went into the eye. And what I found in the eye was a military installation of an alien race. And they were using her eye as a sentinel, like you would use a cyborg, like you would just have, you know, like an eyepiece within a soldier that's beaming information back somewhere else. And I was just blown away. I was like, what, how can that be, right? And so when I started talking with her about it, and, you know, I said, do you want to do this? And blah, 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 and told her what was in there. And the angels, of course, wanted to just dispatch them and, you know, get them out of there. And she started feeling some resistance. And she said, wait a minute, you know, and then she started crying. And she said, those are my comrades. I don't want them to die. And she all of a sudden became aware that she had agreed to come to this planet from another planet to act as a sentinel. And she had to make a decision in this lifetime if she wanted to continue that quest or not, that commitment. And she agreed on her own. Light doesn't try to persuade anybody ever. We just ask the questions. And she said, no, I do. I don't want to do that. I like Earth, and I want to stay here, and I don't want to do that anymore. So the angels and I, kind of blasted the cave that they were in, and like a regular war. And, she's crying, and there's bodies everywhere, and then we transmitted it all into light and cleaned it up. And her eye went back to normal. I have photos of this. Her eye wasn't squinty anymore. I mean, immediately after the phone call, her eye is completely normal. It had never been normal. And so, that's kind of what made me, part of the things that made me, like, I have to write this book, because it's just, wow, like, how could that be? Mm-hmm. How could a lady have a military alien installation in her eyeball? But she did. She did. And then these kids with autism, I get in there and there's the scaffolding, get it out, get it out, get it out. So the reaction to me is usually one of surprise. And I've had, these intergalactic demons say, how can you see us? Nobody can see us. You're the only one who can see us. Nobody knows that we're here. They're surprised. They're, upset. They've been caught. And many times there's a little resistance. But, unlike the movies, it's not always this, even with demonic presences, it's not this, tremendous anger and this personal assault, because it's not about me and it's not about them. When you talk to these energies, they're just like our soldiers. Why are you here? To suppress the light. Why do you have to suppress the light? Because we have to. Why do you have to suppress the light? Because you have to. Because it's just what we're supposed to do. We have to suppress the light in this sector. Excuse me. So it's very dispassionate. They're just doing their job. And I've had alien warlords and commanders who, basically asked to be killed because they couldn't go back to their commander and fail the mission. They're like, just please kill me. Or they'll come over to the light, because we'll offer them mercy. It's very militaristic. So it's just like if you came into a military installation in another country and said, hey, we're here to take this place back over. It's just the way that they would respond. But it's actually a little bit more civil than that, because they're like, okay, why? Show me the deed, prove ownership, that this is your space, that kind of thing.
Eric is asking, is the war between darkness and light universal? Are there races that have been able to defeat darkness so totally that they are purely entities of the light now?
I don't know the answer to that, because I don't know the whole universe. I don't think any of us does. I think the angels are saying not the only. The primary dimension where you're going to have a total lack of conflict would be the heavenly dimension. When we're all discarnate and we're in that place of light. There are many civilizations that are primarily light. So they have a very high vibration. They don't have conflict. They're very evolved, very gentle, working for the betterment of the universe. But especially in this part of the universe and on Earth at this time, it's very, very divided. There's just tremendous duality going on here.
And moving on, Eric has a follow-up question for you. He is asking, does music have any effect on the kinds of entities that form attachments? I don't know exactly what you're asking about that, but what comes to mind is like heavy metal or something like that. And I should hope so. I'm a big metal fan.
I think it depends on, what you're pulling in and what you're vibrating to. So if you're a metalhead and you're doing drugs and you're depressed, that's, basically opening 3 windows in your house to letting bad things come in. If you're grounded and you're happy and you're listening to metal music, not so much. But those combinations together can create a vibration that could attract negativity. So I think like tuning out the news is really important because that's a terrorist device to keep us in fear. Listening to music that lifts your vibration, even if it's metal, whatever. Whatever makes you feel good and strong and grounded and not scattered and afraid and bummed out is really important.
I got a couple questions from Joni for you. She is asking, how do you find someone who does your type of work? She's in Toronto.
Well, first of all, I work all over the world because I work virtually. I work over the phone. So I don't actually meet anybody in person. I do everything over the phone and over Skype because when I work with a person, I have to close my eyes and actually look inside that person. So it doesn't do any good to have them, with me. And I've helped people literally all over the world: South Africa, Australia, Denmark, Amsterdam, lots of people in Canada. So, you can look up shamans is probably the closest thing to what I do. What I do is a form of shamanism. Shamans remove entities and work between dimensions and clean things up. So you can do a Google search of shamans. You can you go to my website, freedbythelight.com, or talkwiththeangels.com, or getrealanswers.com, and book a session with me, or just look for somebody that does this kind of work. It's basically considered shamanic work.
And her follow-up question to that is, which archangels wear winged shoes? I dreamt of him with Michael, Gabriel, and Ariel, or is it Uriel?
Oh, that's an interesting question because there are two angels. One is named Uriel, and the other one is named Ariel. So I work with both of them. The angels can appear in lots of different forms. So if those are the names that you're getting, then I would just tune into that, and you can Google them. There's photos and not photos, but they very lifelike portraits of those kinds of archangels, and you can just kind of tune in and see, is that what I saw? Does that feel like who came to me? And that's really very accurate. There is a Uriel and there is an Ariel. So good job.
Which one wears the winged boots? Apparently this is important.
I don't really know. I don't know. When they appear to me, I don't really look at their feet, so you might want to just do some research on the internet or read some of maybe Doreen Virtue's books and seeing like that. I would just go online and just look at, there's thousands of images of angels and looking into that. Traditionally, in mythology, Mercury would be the god that had the winged boots, and then Mercury has also been associated with Archangel Gabriel. And Gabriel is the god of communication and writing, so it could be Gabriel.
Trip has a question for you. He is asking, out of all the other solar systems and galaxies, have you ever asked any of these badass aliens why they came here?
It's kind of implied, why are you occupying this person? But I haven't really asked them, why did you come to Earth? Because again, it's I'm more interested in that moment and finding a way to extricate them. But what I'm starting to understand after doing this for 5 years is that humans are viewed as real estate. They're things to occupy. They want to get inside of us to broadcast. They want to get inside of us to gain a strategic advantage in this cosmic war that we're in. And they come here because we have free will. So when I work with a lot of the alien species, and I see their ships, sometimes we blow up their ships. Sometimes I travel, interdimensionally to try and talk to their commanders or whatever. And so I see glimpses of these other worlds. And I just recently read up about this too. Most of the other planets are not free will. Now we hear all the time Earth is a free will zone. What does that mean? Well, in my experience, what it means is that most of the other planets there's just more of a Borg mentality or a hive mentality, even in the high vibration ones, it's almost like everybody's one, right? So everybody's following the same thing. Or in the other planets, it's very militaristic, and it's a hive mentality or a Borg mentality. So everybody does what the dictator wants. Everybody's part of the greater whole. But it's not like in the utopian way. It's you don't matter. You're not an individual. You don't get to choose your destiny. You don't get to make individual choices. This is sort of a grand experiment in the cosmos, an agreement between God and the other forces to kind of let humans duke it out and see how free will really works. And it is really precious because you don't really get it. When you're in heaven, there's no duality. So there's no really, I'm not going to say you don't have free will in heaven because you do, but you're all part of everything. So it's just a different experience of duality being here. And it is precious. And when you're on these other planets and there are insects running everything, or, you know, it's a Borg machine and it's AI, there's not that soul. There's no soul present. And there's no sense of individuality. There's no sense of personal freedom or personal choice. And so this is why my book talks a lot about the power of the sovereign soul, what you need to do to assert your own sovereignty. And this is why Earth is precious and why we're being messed with, because we are this cosmic experiment. In other places, everything's been very firmly established. It's all under the control of XYZ regime. And that's part of, you know, either the light or the dark. Here, it's not so defined. It's kind of all up for grabs. And, you know, we're living the consequence of that.
Let's get to another question here from our audience, and this one comes from Eric again. He is asking, can evil or the evil extraterrestrials have a high vibrational frequency?
No. No. No.
How does the layman define that, though? As somebody who's connected like you are, or even to the lesser extent, way lesser, I can tell. But for a lot of people, they can't tell the difference.
It's a great question. It's really a big problem. I think it's important, you know, like what is a high frequency? High frequency is, and it's kind of interesting because they talk about it in the Bible, right? Like, you know, be pure in your thoughts, do what is right, you know, care about your fellow person. If you're acting on these virtues, that's a high vibration. If you're into drugs, you know, destruction, darkness, depression, lack of personal responsibility, anger, you know, addictions, all that stuff, that is low vibration. And it's really very cut and dried. High vibration is love, harmony, peace, goodness, compassion, caring, giving, not forcing someone to do anything. Low vibration stuff is very base stuff. So it's addictive, it's sticky energy, it's thick energy. Light is light. It feels light. It feels expansive. It feels warm. It feels radiant. It feels free. When people get in sessions with me, they just are astonished. They're like, oh my God, I can feel it go. Like I feel so much lighter. I can breathe now. I feel so much lighter. I feel like I can fly around. And we actually give them new light bodies, and they can be free of all these physical addictions and things that they've had. So yeah, it's like very, very base. So low frequency is heavy feeling, depression, thickness, murkiness, anger, greed, depression, addictiveness. And then the opposite of that is just all the opposite of that. It's just light, freedom, peace, healing. And the other thing that's a big distinction is that the dark doesn't give you full disclosure. So the dark will, you know, maybe promise you something or offer something, and then it comes with a really big price tag at the other end that nobody told you about. In the light doesn't ask for anything, and we don't do anything in your energy field without full disclosure. So we will say, you know, would you like us to remove this? Yes, please. Would you like to do this? Yes. Would you like to do this? Yes. Do you want to do that? Yes or no? No? Okay, then we're done. We don't force anything, and there's full disclosure.
When you have dealt with these extraterrestrial beings, have you ever seen them with your own eyes, or is it only on a spiritual level?
It's only on a spiritual level.
And do you get in depth with them, finding out where they are from and why they have come here?
I've only done that once or twice. Like I said, Archangel Michael helped me kind of interrogate some intergalactic demons that were possessing a client of mine in London, and I did. I was like, I want to know where you're from and why you're doing this, and we did kind of do that. And that's when they admitted, how can you see us? Nobody can see us. We just come and go as we please, and we make people gain weight, so we have more space to move around in there, and we do this to confuse them, and we do that to confuse them, and we pick vessels that are very sensitive psychically so that we can broadcast through them and use their gifts for our own, benefit, and those kinds of things. But most of the time, it's a very sort of urgent situation, right? I'm just like popping up out of nowhere and demanding. It's like rescuing hostages, basically. It's a little bit like a cosmic Rambo. You go in there with the angels and everybody there, and it's like taking them by surprise and just going, look, this has got to stop right now, and we're going to kick you out one way or another, and you got to go. So it's not the kind of thing like I sit there and talk to them, because it's all very urgent and it has to be done right then. And the other reason for that is because it's hard to maintain a vibrational connection for very long. And when I do these sessions, it's like a 3-ring circus. Like I'm talking to the person, I'm talking to the energy inside the person. I may be talking to that energy's commanders or governing forces. I'm also talking to my angels and my guides to find out what to do next. So there's a lot going on energetically. It's very exhausting work to do this and to hold that vibration for that period of time. So it's not something where, my goal is not to like interview the intruder. My job is to get rid of it.
You say it's very exhaustive and very battling. How long do these sessions take? Do they take an hour? Can they take up to days?
It's really amazing, like what you can accomplish, like in an hour. I mean, it's just phenomenal what can happen in that space. Because the angels are present and because these divine forces are there, they just can vanquish something in a split second. So most of the time, I can clear somebody in one session, which is an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. It may take a couple sessions for some people. The longest session I've ever had, I think, was 4.5 hours. And that was for a person who was, had a lot of occupation and had dragons. And this is a fascinating story, and it's in my book with the pictures and everything. This guy's an artist, and he just calls me, and he's like, I'm a little bummed out. I just feel kind of emasculated and not really empowered. And I was like, okay, fine. Super sweet guy. The only complaint his wife had about him was he was too loving. Okay? So this is important to know. This is a guy that's walking around. He's not into drugs. There's nothing dark about him. Someone who knew him said she didn't feel comfortable being around him. But I mean, just seeing him on the street, you would just think he's like the super nice guy. Okay, so it's not a serial killer, not anybody that's obviously possessed. And I get him on the phone, and the first thing I do is I get in his energy field, and he's in this cave. And there's first darkness in the cave, and then I see this little boy sitting in the middle of this cave with light over him, like a movie. And he's in a little purple and white outfit, curled up in the fetal position on the floor. And as soon as he sees me, he says, shh, absolutely terrified. Doesn't want me to make a sound. So I don't say anything, and I mentally give an instruction that there be more light. This light appears, and he's in a cave that's lined with dragons. I still get chills every time I tell the story. lined with dragons, and they're all sleeping. And he's in the middle of this nest of dragons. And I'm like, okay. So I had the angels open up a hole in the cave, and we got him out. And then I was left to, like, what do I do with the dragons, right? Because that's still his energy field. We have to get him out, right? So, you know, the angels did their thing, and we got them all cleared out. And when I was talking with him, you know, he's growling. I'm hearing all these, like, you know, gnashing, like the stuff you hear in the movies, the growling and the screaming and the gnashing and all that stuff of these demons. And when it was over, he said, oh, my God. He said, I have a picture of me in that outfit. He was 3 years old, and in the photo, he's with a Christmas tree. This is in my book. He's doing a thing that his family called the grit. And it was where he would literally, like, grit his teeth and make his hands like talons and, like, jump at people like he was a dragon. He did that when he was 3 years old. And he's got a photo of himself in that same purple outfit that I saw him in the nest of dragons in. It gets even more strange and amazing. So I was like, he texted me this photo. I was like, oh my God. He goes, yeah, I was doing the grit. They called it the grit. I would just feel this energy like build up inside of me, and I would just have to do it. I would just have to get it out. I was like, okay. So then he says, wait a minute, I have another drawing. So he's a phenomenally talented artist. That's why they took him over. He sent me a drawing that he did at 9 years old of this terribly menacing dragon that was completely encircled and had, like, sucked down a blue flag and, like, a knight's horse, and all you could see was, like, the rear of the horse and the knight's pennant coming out of the ground. Like, it was pulling everything down on the ground with it, and it was completely encircled it, like, this is mine. And the menacing look in this dragon's eye is sinister. It's amazing. And he drew this. I mean, it's in perfect detail, absolutely astonishing detail at 9 years old. And he drew a picture of the demon inside of him. He drew a picture of the dragon taking down this little boy in the blue suit inside of him. And that just blew my mind. I was like, wow, how does that happen?
That brings up another point here, because children are so susceptible and still so open, especially at a younger age where they haven't been regulated as much to society as, say, older teenagers or even school-age children in elementary school or what have you. How do children react, and have you ever worked with children in regards to either the angels or the extraterrestrials?
Yeah, I have several children that are clients, and they're the ones that are affected by the nanotechnology the most, little boys. My book opens with the story of a little boy named Travis who his mom was convinced he was going to be a serial killer. And he would walk around and he would talk about how he was going to grow up and kill people. He was terrifying. He was like maybe 6 at the time. And he had buzzing in his head. He had terrible nightmares. His mom would go in his room and pray, but she could feel the oppression in the room and that her prayers weren't getting through, but she didn't know why. She's a very devout Christian. And she was like, what is going on with my kid? And then he would just walk through the house talking to himself all the time. And she's like, who are you talking to, Travis? And he's like, oh, Mom, they never leave me alone. And then he actually said to her, Mom, it's like I have worms in my head. There's little men in my head building things. There's little men in my head building things. And when I got in his head, he had alien scaffolding. This is what they do to try and turn the structure, into the AI, through the nanotechnology that's in the food and candy. And when I got that out of him, he completely changed. He literally shot up like 2 inches in height he had a dent in his chin that went away. His chin physically changed. The bone in his chin changed. His mom had to buy him a whole new set of clothes. And he stopped talking about killing people, and he did his homework, and he didn't have nightmares anymore, and it was gone. So I work a lot with children, and and here's the other thing too that I cover a lot in my book, which is, if your kid tells you there's a monster in the room, there's probably a monster in the room. There's probably a monster in the room because these things come for children. My friend told me of her granddaughter would wake up every night, like at midnight, screaming, like blood-curdling screams. And they're like, oh, she's not hungry, she's not this. She goes, but every night she wakes up screaming. I said, there's something in the room with her. I could see it. I said, there's something coming for her because they come for the light. I mean, they came for me, they came for everybody of the light. And, if anybody's ever been in that situation as a kid, no one can ever tell you that there's nothing in that room because you can feel it, you can see it. Like you said, when you were in that dimension, you could see the black eyes. You can feel it. You know it's there. So if your kid tells you there's something there, you got to listen to them. And you got to be there, and you got to find them some spiritual help. So I did a protection around this little girl, and I got that thing out of her room, and hopefully she's not screaming anymore. But we really have to pay attention because they're out there, and they come for the light. They come for the light.
Does it frustrate you then when you see parents who absolutely always use the mainstream answer? Oh, it's just imagination. No, you're not hearing that. Stop talking like that. Nobody is there. Any type of cliche like that?
Absolutely. Because they put their kid in a double bind. The kid is already being attacked by something that he or she doesn't understand, can't stop, is completely terrified of, and then they're all of a sudden completely alone because their parents are not there for them. So this begins a very, very bad pattern. And what it can also lead to is possession, and it can also lead to energetic parasites. Something taking over the energy field of that child because that child has been abandoned. Children who have very strong ties to their parents and who have a lot of interaction with them are much less likely to become prey to these things. I remember I was walking around my apartment complex one day, and I saw this mother slap her kid right across the face. And I turned and I yelled, and I said, hey, I will call the police. And then, here's that still small voice, Dave. My angel said, don't do that. That's not what it looks like. They need your help. And so I walked over, and I was very calm, and I said to the mom, hard day, huh? And I smelled alcohol in her breath, and she said, yes. She said, they're always fighting. I don't know why they're fighting. Drives me crazy, And she looked at the girl that she slapped, and she said, you always start this stuff. You always start this stuff. And I was very eerily calm. Like, this is where the angels are working through me, right? And I just listened. And I looked at the little girl, and I said, is it hard sometimes not to fight? And she said, yeah. She goes, I really try hard. I don't know why I do it. It's like I can't stop it. And I looked at her, and I could see that she, to some degree was possessed. And I said, I know that's really hard sometimes. She goes, I try to fight it. I really do. But it's just too strong sometimes. And I can't stop it. And I'm feeling really choked up right now, remembering that moment. And I looked at her and I said, I know, sweetheart, I know. And I said, I know it gets tough. And then so I started praying for them. And hugged the mom, hugged the kids, pet the cat, And the front office had told me that prior to this, they had constant complaints about this family, that they were always fighting, there were always disturbances, the mom was always angry, always in a bad mood. And they said after that night, they'd never had another complaint of her. She was never disruptive. And I would see the little girl, walk by the house too. And the mom the girl was much more calm. She was mature. She wasn't impulsive. She was gone. It was gone. I could see. She grew in height too. She shot up like a couple of inches as well. And I was just really surprised because I told the front office about it because I'd actually helped one of their children. And she said, yeah, she said, they were a really bad problem family until about 6 months ago. She goes, and then we hadn't had a problem. And then the mom came in to pay her rent, and she was totally nice. And prior to that, she was really mean and difficult. She goes, I don't know what happened. And I said, well, And then we compared the timelines, and it was exactly the time when I helped them. So yeah, kids are really vulnerable.
All right, let's get to a question here from from Ron, and we only got a couple of minutes left. And this question here, he asks, Margo, when you are doing a remote session, do the angels you are in communication with go to the person you are helping over the phone?
I don't really know how to answer that. Do they go to the person over the phone? Sometimes, yes, they will. They will appear in the room where the person is. The person can often see them and feel them and sense them. And energetically, they are always connected, wherever the person is, because, spirit is everywhere, so nobody has to be physically connected to do this work. So, yes, they do. They do. Many, many times they'll say, oh, I see the angel right now, or I feel this, or, they're aware of the presence, definitely. Mm-hmm.
And a quick one from Joe here. Have you ever had any contact with Sasquatch through this?
No, I have not, but I have encountered a spirit guide who was a Yeti.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was very interesting. And, sometimes people have spirit guides that are, that are Gandalf, Lady Guinevere, these mythical, or literary concoctions that we think of. But, who knows if they're not based on an actual energy, right? A case being in point very quickly on the dark side of that would be the energy of the Joker. So we've had so many actors represent this Joker in the movies recently, and they all talked about it. Of course, Heath Ledger lost his life very soon after playing the Joker. And then Jared Leto talked about, he could feel this energy, and he would get in this character, and this character was just horrible. So, who knows that we're not tapping into actual energies, right, when we're writing anything. So I do see many, many types of mythological stuff. But yeah, this Yeti, and I don't know if I saw it in a cartoon a long time ago or whatever, but it seemed familiar to me. It was white, it was a Yeti, and had laser beams for eyes. And so it was helping this person, basically burn away whatever needed to be burned away.
That is intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a pretty cool spirit guide. I thought it was awesome.
For sure. We have about 2 minutes left, and I wanted to hit you up with a quick question here, and I know we're not going to have a lot of time to delve into it. I'm curious, what do Fortune 500 companies need from a spiritual advisor?
Well, not all of them. Not all of my clients have been spiritual clients. So I was very active in the public relations field and still am, known all over the world as the media relations maven. So most of those companies I trained in public relations capacity. I taught them how to get better publicity. There are a couple of Fortune 500 companies that do hire me to be a psychic. So they come in and they say, do your thing, and I read people. I work with them on overcoming their blocks, their obstacles, moving their self-esteem. Actually did a soul clearing on somebody, sitting at a Fortune 500 company table. And it was crazy because I walked in and she had this shroud over her energetically, and she was depressed and quiet, and nobody could really see her. And then it just lifted in the middle of our session, and she became bright and shiny and made all these changes in her life and was happy, and people saw her all of a sudden, and it was literally like night and day. So it's happening more and more often that companies are understanding the need for energy, the need that, you can tell an employee to change all you want, but if they have a deep-seated block that's either from themselves or from another entity, they're not going to get past it, and you're not going to have the efficiency that you need. So it behooves them to get to the heart of the matter and to get everybody as clear as possible so that they can do their jobs better.
Margo, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. What a show. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was awesome to be here. Enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Where can people find more information about what you do or get in touch with you?
Absolutely. The book is freedbythelight.com. The book is Free by the Light, and you can get it at freebythelight.com. And then if they want to book a session with me, they can go to my website, which is getrealanswers.com or margomateas.com. And that's MargoMateas as in Sam. So getrealanswers.com, margomateas.com, and freebythelight.com.
Right. Thank you so much, Margo. I'm going to get you to hold on for a minute here because I got to wrap this thing up. It's that time. If you're listening on the Space Out Radio side, you are listening to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. He brings us in and out of every episode around these parts. We thank Bumblefoot for that. Tomorrow night on the show, Bill Grabowski is joining us. We are talking UFOs and Black Ops, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time, right here on the mighty SOR. Remember, if you want to listen to our archives, you go to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also tune us in on TuneIn and download this show and others on iTunes. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to Margo. Much love, everybody. Do us a favor. If you like what we're doing, and you want to see this grow with me, like we have been, tell a friend. It's just that simple. Let's build this thing one person at a time, and we need your help. Have a good one. Much love to all of you. We'll see you in exactly 21 hours from now.